Start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. I'm here, Spin, and this is your Week 37 review show. We're almost at the end of the season, and the title race is still a thing. Arsenal City both keep winning. Arsenal, though, did make it a little interesting in the morning, not necessarily by the scoreline, but how they got the first goal. Little interesting PK to say the least, and then after really fully being outplayed. To be fair, like Arsenal were really on it that first half. They just hadn't scored. Bournemouth did wake up though and give things a much better go in the second half. I think they only had one shot to like 16 in the first, and within the first maybe 15 minutes or so, they managed to get like seven shots or so, and it looked like they maybe even gotten one back to make it 2-1 after Arsenal did get the second goal with a really nice team goal set up by Declan Rice finding Trossard in the box, and then Trossard was able to have a nice little finish for them. But instead of it being 2-1, that goal was ruled out, which so I mean that'll be a bit of a topic that I'll get to. Not all calls went Arsenal's way. There was like in 10 minutes into the game there was a potential foul on there was a foul on Saka that possibly could have been a red card, could have been a sending off. So I mean that obviously would have changed things as well. And then Rice was able to tack one late, and then City also did not mess around. They get the first goal thanks to a favorable PK, in my opinion, as well. But given how this game went, that probably didn't really matter because City decided to actually remember that they had someone like Erling Haaland on their team, and they remembered how to actually play to his strengths. They finally were past making. He was he's always been making these runs behind, but they were finally just playing him in. And it wasn't just Kevin De Bruyne. It was Kovacic. It was Phil Foden. And Erling Haaland decided to basically win the Golden Boot with this game, and there you go. It's only taken till May for Man City to actually finally play to his strengths, but they look strong again, and I mean we'll see if they're able to just do what they've been doing every single year, basically win out from January and on. The only two draws I think they have are or the drop points are really uh, it's Liverpool and Arsenal. I think I'd have to re-look at that. I don't think they've lost since really the Aston Villa loss. I think the only games that they've lost was when Rodri wasn't able to play, and that was due to him either being out for like an international break or red cards. So just City. They are a machine. Though that said, it's a machine that's not going to do this with 90 points. So everyone's going to look at this as this was a chance to get them. If they don't, didn't have Kevin De Bruyne for like really half the whole season. Pep didn't really have Holland for 2 or 3 months. You remember back in like November when Holland had his injury and he wasn't able to play till mid February or so. So yeah, that'll definitely be something to look at if Arsenal do come up short. Liverpool as well. But that is looking to be certain. And the top four it felt secure for Villa, but they still had a chance to make it official, and they flopped versus Brighton. So, and it wasn't just necessarily because of them missing Emi Martinez. Now, he's better with the ball at his feet, so maybe that would have changed things a little bit. But Robert Olsen was quite good as far as in between the sticks. He made a number of really big saves to just keep him in the game. And then things just got worse for Brighton or for Aston Villa as things went on. Morgan Rogers had to be subbed off after about 20 minutes into the game. It's already a thin squad. They're down 4-2, I believe, in the Conference Champions League semifinals to Marseille. So they've got to go into that today. If Spurs had necessarily fallen down a little bit, they would have possibly been able to put some pressure because Aston Villa are a thin squad and they're trying to go for this Conference League title, and they're having to use Ali Walker. They're having to use just all of their players, in midweek football and in the domestic league in the weekend, and it is starting to show a little bit. But they're probably going to be able to skate by just barely, just because Spurs had a chance to beat. The unfortunate thing for Villa for Spurs was their two games that they had on the calendar remaining were always Liverpool and Man City. Now we'll see what they do versus Man City coming up. But Spurs been on a bit of a slide. They have lost, I think, three out of their last four. One of them being Chelsea in the midweek as well. They didn't necessarily look that great in that game either. And one thing you can say is they did look a little bit better in the second half versus Liverpool. So We'll get to that game as well. Liverpool did also were on a bit of a slide. I think they had only won one for their last five. And they needed that. They needed to finally see the ball go into the net. One person that really helped with that was Andy Robinson, someone that he wouldn't have really expected, and he helped last week versus West Ham as well. But Liverpool were able to beat Spurs. It looked like it was going to be a comfortable game where Klopp could have brought on kids on the bench, and all of a sudden Spurs made some changes as well. And they get back into the game. They made it 4-2 with in the 73rd, 74th minute, where there was a lot of time left for them to really make this uncomfortable, and they did a good job making it uncomfortable without necessarily scoring. There were a couple of times when Richarlison was still in behind, and maybe just a wrong touch here and there, or a last ditch tackle, prevented Spurs from even getting a third. I think Joe Gomez had to make a really Herculean kind of effort to prevent Brendan Johnson crashing to the near post. He actually did fly into the near post. That would have made it 4-3. It was an entirely different Spurs team than we'd seen the last few weeks. But one thing I'll when I get to that game is they're a different team when I think Richarlison plays and when Son plays on the left side. I think Pochettino has tried to be a little maybe too clever for his own good. I also think Brendan Johnson works better than Kulishevsky on the right. But we've seen, before Werner got hurt, we've seen Werner basically playing there, and we've seen Son kind of played in the middle. Richarlison has had injuries. That's the reason why they haven't really been able to fit him in nearly as much, and they really do miss that. They need to address that in the summertime, whether or not it is Richarlison with some health and full backing, or they need to go out and maybe get someone. I know they do have someone named Veliz that they think they loaned out to a club in La Liga. Maybe he could be the idea as well. But they need a target man. They need someone that can make some runs because they've been struggling a little bit with that. Also, they've been without Udogie for the last few games, and man, has that right side really shown up. At first, it was Ben Davies. Ben Davies did not do well versus Soccer versus Arsenal, and then they tried Emerson Royal Emil Royal, and that did not work either. As we saw, Salah kind of enjoyed going against him a little bit. So that's where we are with the top four, and then the relegation picture is also starting to kind of resemble a little bit exactly what probably everyone would have said back in October. So it's funny how we finally come full circle a little bit, where it does look like the three promoted sides will be the ones to go down, but it's still not over yet. Luton really did have the most. They looked like they had the most likely as far as changing the narrative, but because they can score goals, and they finally got Adebayo healthy, it looked like they were mostly full strength. At the most part, they had Samuel Lokonga and Barkley for the midfield, and they just couldn't take their opportunities versus Everton. They played well. To be fair, they gave away an early PK, so they were against it from the start. But after that, I think Everton really only had like one big chance. I think it was Calvert-Lewin having a header that needed a pretty good save. But after that, Luton did explode in the second half, and Everton were just defending a little bit for their life. I think it's from a Luton's perspective, it's probably annoying that you saw Everton still fighting and scrapping because they don't really have much to play for. But that is what Dyche is able to instill in his guys, and Luton did have their chances. Woodrow, I think, had a bike, or maybe it was Barry. That needed clearing. There was Andrew Townsend at the very end, had a shot that could have deflected anywhere, could have easily gone in, and it didn't. So Luton will definitely probably regret a little of that because they did have a chance to win that game and put a lot of pressure on Nottingham Forest, and they kind of did the opposite. Getting that draw, they were even with Forest, but they were still down on goal differential, and Forest always had that game versus Sheffield as basically their game in hand, and Forest were able to take their opportunities. And then Burnley also had an opportunity, but it wasn't against the easiest team. Newcastle looked freshened up. They were still missing Trippier, Shar and Botman, so it wasn't the full strength Newcastle, but they had Ishtek, they had Callum Wilson back. Both were sent to go out, so we saw how basically play a different kind of formation, almost like a 4-2-4 or 4-4-2. Anthony Gordon and Murphy to kind of offer some width. Bruno Guimaraes and Longstaff given a little bit of a different role as well, and Burnley were able to make some chances. They were able to get in behind Dan Burn a little bit, but they weren't really able to make any of it count. And all it took was a nice couple counters for Newcastle. And after they got a couple of goals, really they did to kind of take control of the game. They started to press a little bit higher. They started to take some more chances. Lewis Hall and Livramento starred for their fullbacks because they were without Trippier and without well, because no Shar or Botman or even Jamal Lascelles, Dan Burns been moved to center back, so they were without their first choice left back as well, or maybe second would have been Livramento. And instead, they gave Lewis Hall a shot, and Lewis Hall played a role in the second goal, but Livramento played a role in the first. So, good stuff for Eddie Howe. Really, really unfortunate for Burnley because they didn't necessarily play poor. And to be honest, I'm going to make the case when I get to the game that if just a different decision had happened, a different passing decision, 'cause Burnley had chances to actually get in behind and hurt Newcastle, and they didn't actually pull it off, and because of that, Newcastle were actually able to counter instead, and that actually led to a couple of goals. So there was an early PK decision that possibly could have been called as well. So Burnley really were the scoreline didn't necessarily reflect where it was, but that said, after it was 3-0. It did feel like the game was over. They didn't really offer much in the second half, and they made things worse. Actually, just starting off with giving away a PK just really early on. Ishak missed it, but it doesn't matter because he was able to get a goal just a few minutes after that. And then Burnley were able to get one, get a corner kick kind of late with a nice little header by John O'Shea. But so that's kind of where we are with that. And then Forest. Forest kind of had, that was the other team that was, kind of into this. And like I said, they didn't start the game actually that well for Sheffield. Sheffield have been in a such kind of that kind of team these last few weeks where they've actually started off quite okay, and it's just once they get down, just everything kind of down tools. And in this case, it was just the case. It was just an example of Sheffield did have some chances to add on a couple, a second or even a third with Brendan Diaz and Archer weren't able to do it, and just basically on Forest's side, someone like Callum Hudson-Odoi was able to do that, basically create a couple goals out of nothing, just and just really poor 1v1 defending, but by Sheffield. But that's kind of that basically does describe them a little bit. Just defensively, they've been shambolic or poor, any kind of word you want to use. I think they officially are at 100 goals conceded for the year. I mean, Leeds got relegated a couple of seasons ago where they gave up something like 89. So that kind of shows you where we are. With that, they've been poor the entire year. They had a chance to maybe rectify that in January. They brought in Mason Holgate, and he really didn't offer them any protection either. I mean, there was one situation where, like, from February to mid March, it felt like they were conceding 5 goals every single game at Bramall Lane. So, uh, yeah, it just wasn't to be for them. They were already out. So, I mean, so to be fair to Wilder and the guys, they did give it a go. They were competitive, but Forest were always had the upper hand, and that really did help them because now they have the 3 points advantage, and I mean, they still have Chelsea as a game to kind of play, so that's kind of if they don't get anything with Chelsea, when we get to them, you'll see why this is going to be an issue because Chelsea all of a sudden are flying a little bit as well. Then things can still get a little sticky because Burnley's need to find a way to make up that gap. It's a 5 point gap now. They need to find a way to get that to within three because they do have Forest on the last day. So Burnley still have a chance. Luton possibly have a chance as well. But they're going to have to win out, obviously, and you just have to imagine that it's just not in their hands, and you just have to hope that Chelsea can beat Forest. That's definitely possible, and then we'll see what Forest do versus Burnley. So it's not set in stone yet. It's just it is going to ask a lot for Burnley and Luton, and basically no more room for error at all. Max points now needed for both, and it's going to be hard for Forest because Chelsea sent David Moyes packing. It seems like 5-0 could have been worse. Bowen did strike the post, I think 3 times. To be fair, but outside of that, they were not competitive. Palmer starting to fly for them, but it's not just Palmer. Poach has found a little bit of a consistent roster. That's something we haven't seen, and his tactics have been tweaked a little bit as well. He's moved Mark Cucurella almost to be kind of an additional midfielder. He's almost played inverted. You're using Gallagher almost to play out wide in their build up. And as they progress up field, Gallagher's actually making some runs into the box. Cucurella's kind of staying back. There's been no Enzo the last few games, so they've been able to kind of shift that way, and they've really put a lot more onus on building with Caicedo. and Caicedo kind of alone, and that's worked. And he is really, really flied the last few games for them. Very good versus Villa, very good for Spurs as well. And then up front, Madueke and Mudryk have been given license to kind of be the wide players to carry the ball and cut inside. And they're finally getting a run of games. Sterling's been kind of sent the cold shoulder, and Palmer hasn't been stuck on the right side. He's actually been moved to almost have that free role in the center, and he is definitely enjoying that. But Palmer, I think, is enjoying it because he's finding teammates, scoring himself. But a lot of these goals are happening because they have a focal man now that they can rely on, that they have faith in, and that is Nicholas Jackson. And I don't, he got a haircut. He ditched the blue kind of Pogba hair to go kind of clean shaven. He looks different. He looks different figuratively and literally, just more and much more calm in his finishing. The fifth goal was him in a 1v1. He was able to put that away very easily. And again, just a number of these goals really did come from Chelsea trying to look for him into the box. It didn't necessarily come off, but because he had all this attention around him, Chelsea had the bodies near where the ball would landed, and they were able to get a couple cleanup goals. So, and Jackson, I think, was able to score versus Villa in the midweek. Chelsea were able to get, I think, 2 goals in that game from set pieces. Villa still struggled a little bit on set piece defense in that game, but Chelsea have started to, at least they're ending the season well, and you're starting to see what at least maybe the fans can have a little faith in next year. Maybe Pochettino has found a way to keep his job because there was a lot of talks about that. Now, uh, is this just a purple patch or something to really believe in? One thing you can't say is towards the end of the year, the end of this game, you saw Nkunku back on the field. You saw Jackson and Nkunku. You saw Casado starting to really, really flourish a little bit. Now there is talks they might have to lose Gallagher. He's been long linked as far as someone they need to sell. They have Quali Chukwuemeka that they haven't really been able to feature all year. What are they going to do with him? You have Reece James in the wings. You have Marlo Gusto has been able to do an admirable job. Can Marlo Gusto maybe play at left back and maybe do what Cucurella is doing? That would be interesting. Thiago Silva looks like he's finally made it official that he will be leaving to go to the Brazilian league to retire or to continue his career, I guess we can say. So it will be a different Chelsea team, all this talk the whole year has been, well, they have to go get another striker because Jackson's not doing it. Well, Jackson is starting to kind of prove otherwise. And again, this could just be a purple patch. It could be something else. Jackson to me is very Darwin Núñez like in many qualities. Because both have both have shown the ability to miss a ton of chances and to look uncomfortable throughout the season. But Jackson also has a shot conversion rate that is higher than Nunez. It's 17% versus 10. His XG is about the same. He's quietly been quite productive for them, and he hasn't really played the whole season. He had some injury issues. They were trying Cole Palmer almost as a false nine when Jackson was on the bench. So, do they run with Jackson again? Do they try the Jackson and maybe Nkunku kind of partnership that we saw last summer? That'll be something for Pochettino or Chelsea's board to kind of think about. They've also been linked to this 17-year-old in Brazil, Estevio. I don't really know anything about him, but 17, that seems to be more of a kind of a project idea, and that certainly worked for Real Madrid with Vinny and Endrick and Rodrigo when they've done. But that is definitely more towards the future than necessarily helping them next year. But we'll have to see what the idea is. I mean, Chelsea really have showed up a little bit late. One team that has not is Manchester United. Manchester United had a chance to join Newcastle around the table, around like sixth, and they actually were hopped by Chelsea because of this. But they got drubbed 4-0. It could have been a lot more. You don't really want to make an excuse because, but I think they would have been relegated this season if they were forced to play a whole season with Johnny Evans and Casemiro. Casemiro with one leg as the center back pairing, so that kind of said a little of it. They without Bruno Fernandes, and so there was a chance for Mason Mount to maybe stake a claim that maybe he can do that role, and he could hardly get on the ball. He didn't really help his cause at all, that he should be playing more. Eriksson looks like he's closer to retiring than maybe warranting more starts as well. United looked leggy, injured, old, and Palace were reinvigorated. Eze and Elise both available, and frankly, Wharton and Will Hughes both outclassed everyone in Man United's midfield, and that's including Kobe Mano. And then Mateta, outshined Rasmus Højlund. It's not necessarily fair that much because Højlund just wasn't able to get onto the ball, but the few chances that he did get, he wasn't able to keep it. His hold of play was not necessarily good. Palace were very good at and running onto him, and whether it was Klein, whether it was Richards or Anderson, they were very good at being really tight on him, not allowing him to turn. And Rasmus was not able to handle that contact, and they were leading to a lot of. That was how Man United would return the ball over a lot. They were trying to pass it into to Rasmus with his back kind of turned, and he just wasn't able to handle the physicality. So that wasn't ideal. If I'm a Man United fan, I'd be really worried about that as well. You can look at the injury issues as one thing, but that's supposed to be your future, and that's not great. Also, a couple games now without Rashford, and everyone's been wondering, well, is the problem with Hoyland that Rashford and Hoyland don't really click together for some reason? And it's not. So Garnacho play in this game wasn't really able to feature him much either. Now there was a awkward situation where there was a goal that was disallowed. That would have made it 1-1, but just you look at the way how Palace were just able to easily turn them over and were able to outrun them, outwork them. This would have happened no matter what. This could have happened every single game for the last since like January, to be honest. And the only reason it didn't is either Onana had a really good day for them for the most part, or just they went against teams that were not converting their chances. And Palace finally did convert some of their chances. And Onana subsequently did not have a good day. To be a couple of those shots were actually hit relatively, kind of near to him. He just dove weirdly. But Palace, I even said before that game, I was looking at the starting 11. I was like, Palace have 6 guys that walk into this team. And I was thinking it could get ugly. And I think the problem for Ten Hag now is people can now look at this. Everyone's been looking at Ange Postecoglou and what he's been able to bring to Spurs, how he's come in and they have a different identity of how to play. Oliver Glasnow has only been in charge for like 11 games, and he's come in completely given them a different formation system to play, and they've stayed up because of that change. And not just that, the few games that they've had their fourth choice attackers, they've looked good. Not just like, oh, this is this could be something interesting, to watch as far as entertainment. Though they've looked legitimately good, and the last few games that they've beaten, Man United, it was Liverpool, they beat Newcastle. They have something to really Palace fans have something to really hold on to now, and we'll see what they do as far as ambitions go in the summer. Now, there's so many people on this team that I feel clubs will try to raid as possible. Michel Elise being the top one, who starred with a couple really good nice goals versus Man United. I think he's actually linked to Man United more than anyone else. But Eze was just equally as good as well. He's had something like 11 dribbles completed, or maybe it was nine of like 11 dribbles completed. He won a number of duels. He was just that whole team. Even someone like Adam Wharton, who I keep talking about, who's only 20. I think he walks into Man United right now. I think he outplayed Kobe Mano. I do mean that. So and then so that was just kind of it, and then kind of the rest as far as to talk about. Brentford and Fulham played in their own kind of online created derby, as I say. One of the more boring games of the season. Nothing really was on. For either team, you kind of saw that a little bit. I think the interesting thing for Brentford is I don't know what you do now if you're Thomas Frank, because you're going to lose Tony in the summertime, and you're going to lose him no matter what because he's trying to run down his contract. This is the only summer you're going to get some value out of it. If he gets hurt, playing in the last couple of games, his value is going to go significantly down. So what is the point? You need to think about next season. You've got someone like Kevin Shada that's available now. You need to probably see what him, Lewis Potter, what Riza, and Bremo can kind of create for you. You're bringing in that Igor Thiago, striker coming in the summertime. That's been announced. So I think the idea would probably be the best idea for both. Really, would be to sit Tony, because Brentford looked so good for Sheffield, or no, so good for Luton Town. And since Tony's come back, it's been different. It didn't look the same for Everton. It didn't look the same here. And I think Thomas Frank needs to kind of think about that a little bit. Maybe it is time to kind of sit Tony. But then, all in all, the last kind of remaining thought I had was the season is coming to end kind of flat. Uh, it- you know, Arsenal fans and City fans are certainly enjoying it. Well, at least City fans at the moment. But yeah, all the spots really are tied down. In other leagues, they have crowned their champions for the most part. You can't say that. So at least the title race is still a thing. But top four seems kind of secured. Relegation seems somewhat secured. So it is coming into a little flat. But I think another thing too is last year we had like De Zerbi's brand kind of being new. Now Pochettino's come in and done some new things with his fullbacks. But I'm trying to think like there hasn't really been that kind of like clever new tactic this year. Maybe Arsenal's box four with Havertz that they've been trying. But it does feel like most of the top teams have been more concerned about having control of the ball, not necessarily attacking well with it. Uh, and one thing I kind of want to talk about here is I kind of view the game through a basketball lens now. Fast breaks or transitions, but in the half court, or low blocks. And how do basketball teams attack a half court? Well, when the middle is kind of clogged up, well, they get their ball to a wing player who carries the ball with speed to get past someone 1v1 to open things up and force everyone else to settle in to kind of shift over. And one thing I told my friend is I think one of the reasons I really enjoyed the Champions League semifinals last week was it was something different. We saw elite ball carriers on display. Jaden Sancho completed 11 dribbles versus PSG. Musiala and Sane, Adeyemi, Rodrigo with all on display with clever quick feet. Vinny with the runs and dribbles as well. Mbappe played centrally. So it wasn't the same with him. And as we saw yesterday, he didn't really look himself. So he's not really the best example here, but he just usually you can say that. But it just feels the EPL has lacked that quality this year. Now, a lot of the players that usually offer that have been hurt. Salah's been off it since his injury in January. Matoma, haven't seen him since February because of injured his back. Neto would have been one. Saka started off well, but then kind of fell off. He has started to kind of pick it up a little bit again after being overplayed. I think like the two best players you could maybe look at as someone that would have offered that this whole season have been out this year, Inolise and Eze. Uh, Anthony Gordon and Leon Bailey have been nice surprises, but that is kind of it. All the stars this year, as my buddy Jeremy said, have been central. Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Odegaard, Kevin De Bruyne when he returned. And I think that is kind of something to maybe think about. It's almost like the role of the width or the wide attacker has kind of been taken out. People want that to either be by wing backs or people have taken fullbacks, wide attacking fullbacks, out and they've used center backs in that situation. Really, everything is more about maybe like spacing. Maybe you get the ball out wide and you just want to cross it in. Uh, and everything is really about trying to attack just as much half space as possible. You're not really seeing any of that, 1v1 because with 1v1 does come with risk, and with risk you can lose the ball. So maybe that is kind of it, but I don't know. I think that's been kind of a thought in my head. And then another thing that I've noticed is a lot of the games this year have been leggy at some cases, and there's also been more emphasis on teams being secure out of possession than necessarily sending guys forward to attack or necessarily to press. And then another thing too is the way that they've been doing VAR has been really really bad. And it's almost helping those teams out that are really defensive minded, because you have to be on sides by your breath, and that kind of gets my rant going as well. I think they really do need to look at finding ways to maybe reshape a little of the rules. Handball would be another. I think on corner kicks, they've been. When you got a team that's sitting in a block and you lots of shots on goal, maybe they go out for blocks, go out for corner kicks. They need to maybe be a little bit better at calling fouls, not allowing people to just do a lot of like holding necessarily. Like make it hard to defend corner kicks. Maybe that would actually stop it a little bit, because there needs to be something that changes. These games when teams can't beat boxed in sides, and it's not necessarily the wonder class where it's like Real Madrid going against prime Diego Simeone's Atletico. You can see this with just pick any kind of team, just kind of being stuck in and trying defending within two blocks and not being able to get through. It's not really great on the eye, and it's just that is the one thing that you need to, because the thing that opens games up is when both teams want to attack, both teams want to go for the ball. When a team just doesn't care about that and they just don't want to let anything behind them, they just want to try to eke out maybe a 0-0 draw. You need to find a way to kind of punish that, in my opinion. Uh, but that's just kind of it. That's kind of my rant, and it's coming down to the final 2 weeks. So we'll see what the final day does have to offer. And I think if City do go on to win getting that point at the Etihad did matter. People were kind of wondering a little bit about that. Arsenal went in very, very conscious and very conservative, I guess you can say, in that first half. But I thought they changed it up. I thought they did go for it in the second half, and again that Trossard moment could haunt them. But we'll see. They still have Spurs, a pesky Spurs side. You can say they were pesky versus Arsenal, pesky versus Liverpool in the second half, and usually Son is pesky versus Pep. So we'll have to see about that because the way West Ham have been performing, that doesn't look like that's going to be something for Arsenal fans to hold on to. So we'll see what City do versus Spurs. But they also before that have Fulham. So we'll see what they do versus Fulham. Fulham have been kind of downtoning a little bit themselves, but maybe this could be the one case where they do kind of pip up a little bit. TV cameras will be on them. It is the early games, so maybe they can catch City sleeping a little bit that way. But we'll have to see. That's kind of where we're shaping up. And then so I will get started with Arsenal and Bournemouth. And so you have the Saka PK for the first goal, very very into the half as well. So that kind of factored in as well. If it goes in halftime. Bournemouth probably have a really good, probably really uplifted in how they played. Now they were defending with 10 men behind the ball as well. They only had Solanke to really go long to, and that was kind of because Solanke wasn't really able to hold it up himself. They weren't really able to get really any looks on goal. There were a couple of moments where. Thanks to like an individual error by like Gabriel, where Saliba actually had to bail out his buddy a couple of times, but other than that, they were quite rough. Arsenal were quite sublime in their play in that first half. They just hadn't scored. I think really the talking point going into halftime, if had it been 0-0, everyone would have asked, do Arsenal need a striker? Because Havertz, as good as he is, just he doesn't offer you necessarily that. Now that said, he did make that run in behind. He did draw the PK. And it did have a. There was one time when they went to they had I think it was Odegaard. Odegaard had a nice cross back post. Havertz did a very good job to head it down, and it's Rice in the box, and Rice probably could have done better with his shot. But it was just that it's impossible to kind of get away from that. But one thing they do have is they do have an attacker on the left side. That's not Gabriel Martinelli. So Martinelli is not going to, Trossard's not going to make those runs in behind and stretch. He's not going to make those runs like Martinelli does. But what Trossard does do is what Diego Jota does for Liverpool or Julian Alvarez has done for Man City. And it's these kind of like half space attackers that you don't really know what they offer. They've got a little wiggle to them. They can, but they don't really look that athletic. They don't offer you much in transition. But what they are just people that are really good at creating some space and getting a shot off. And Trossard, there you go. Gets you the second goal, and that was an important second goal because Bournemouth were flying in the second half before that, and then it looked like Bournemouth maybe equalized, and and then refs were like, no, it didn't. Uh, I'll get to that as well. And then Rice at the very end, the 89th minute. So uh, Arsenal coming into this, it was interesting interesting last Sunday for Spurs because of what Spurs were able to do in the second half, and then Bournemouth were a tricky fixture for them to follow up. To be honest, they gave Arsenal fits last year. That was when the Rice Nelson game happened. It was a tricky fixture as well because you've got that Spurs one in between. It was one of those kind of sandwich games with Man United. Now looking at Man United now, that doesn't look like a sandwich game. But this could have been a chance for things to get kind of sticky, especially if Bournemouth had gotten an early goal. But they didn't. Arsenal were quite good. Uh, but we have seen a little different. Thomas Partey has been healthy and immediately come into the 11. I don't think that's insignificant. I think it's allowed Rice to actually play a little bit better, and you're getting what Jorginho offers, just what Partey's a little bit more sturdy as far as winning some duels and uh, Arsenal weren't necessarily as fantastic as far as just keeping the ball. They were just good at really creating chances, and that's something that we haven't really seen with Arsenal in a lot of games. Like they were creating so many chances on a clip. They didn't have the full possession. Now Bournemouth are a pretty decent side at pressing, but this did feel different. And I do think that is kind of a storyline. If Arsenal do go on to win this, Thomas Partey is probably going to start 6 games all season, but the 6 games he will have started will be two or played will be two versus Man City. Was big versus Tottenham in my opinion, and helped out here, and it's allowed Declan Rice to have a little bit more of a kind of a box to box kind of role because Rice isn't a holder. Rice can do that job. Rice can be a stopper or sweeper if you like, to stop transitions. But really, Rice has a lot of the qualities that Granit Xhaka had. Maybe he could be a little bit better on the ball, but he's not terrible. Just you need options. I think that's kind of the he's risk averse. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Party is a little more secure. So if I'm an Arsenal fan, that's probably where I'm looking as far as where we should look at. Now everyone's going to look at striker as well. City have Holland, and Holland is going to get 25 goals every single season. Or is Arsenal going to be able to do that with Havertz and with relying on 20 goals for set pieces? Now that's how they've been able to do it this year. Is that sustainable? Maybe, but maybe not. So that is probably, but it's not easy to look at. You're gonna have to spend a lot of money to go get a striker. The ones out there are like someone like Alexander Isak of Newcastle, he'd probably fit the bill a little bit. Victor Osimhen has long been kind of mentioned, but everyone's going to be a gamble, and so you have gotten some good work out of Havertz. Havertz obviously works better here than he does tried in midfield or tried elsewhere. And so that's kind of just where we are with that. And getting us started, we have I'll go over a couple of the chances because they were quite good. There's a Trossard shot that's blocked, so it's basically a corner kick. Odegaard gets the ball and threads in a lovely through ball. He really is Kevin De Bruyne's air as far as just providing that final through ball. That's another thing too. Arsenal for the last few games have found a way to get Odegaard the ball when he can be more creative with it. Because for the longest time, that's where he was struggling. Rice wasn't able to find him, so Odegaard had to drop for the ball. And when Odegaard was getting it, then maybe there would be like Ben White, or Saka would have to drop for the ball too. Just you're able to get Odegaard the ball in more advanced areas, more areas where he can hurt you because he has that eye for a pass and he's very very good at pulling the trigger on it. And so here Trossard collects the ball and gets a good shot away. It's blocked, but this time there'll be more on that later. But the refing was not good all game, and really I mentioned how the two goal instances, but also this one, Arsenal, Bournemouth's Ryan Christie, 6 out of leg, it's high, and cleats Saka right down the shin area. I think he's lucky to stay on the pitch, and he doesn't even get a yellow. And then we have an Arsenal chance where Tomiyasu clipped the ball into the box, finds Havertz, making a run. Havertz with a quick shot, but it's saved, recycled. Bournemouth are at least doing well to hold on, but it is just that. It's wave after wave. Seleki cannot keep the ball to save their lives. They can't give their backline any time to regroup, and Bournemouth are they're defending well, but it just feels very, very ominous at this point. And then the 15th minute, another chance. So Saka finds Saliba, someone with a nice nice through ball. Saliba has continued to run into the box, chops inside to beat a defender, and goes for goal. And it's right at Travers. This could have gone in. If Saliba picks out a corner, it probably does go in, but it is your center back. And then Odegaard gets the ball near the penalty area, floats a in-swinging ball to the box, to the back post. Havertz is there to win the header, knock it for a teammate, and Rice is there, just shot goes wide. Probably the closest they had come as far as all the chances they had, but they were getting look after look. And then the goal or PK happens. So here's the breathtaking moment. So Partey is being the central holder. He finds Rice to his side. Rice plays it to Gabriel, who then finds Odegaard, making a little run. So Rice couldn't get the ball because there was a guy in front of Odegaard, so he passed it to Gabriel. Gabriel had a pass to get to Odegaard. Odegaard then is able to turn, and then he has a wonderful through ball with his left foot to pick out Havertz, making a run behind. This is not an easy pass to see because Havertz is making this, and I don't think he's even close to being even. I think he's well behind, but Havertz is able to make up that ground behind Senese. It's a fantastic look by Odegaard. It's like one of those when a quarterback kind of throws it before the receiver's made his break almost. It's like a quarterback kind of pass. And then Havertz is able to another thing too is the weight on it is perfect. If it's hit too hard, the keeper's going to be able to get to it, but because it comes out, Havertz is able to get a touch, and he tries to go around the keeper, and keeper goes down, sliding into him, and Havertz does well to just keep his feet down. Now, there is contact, and I think in past years this is obvious. It's not even a doubt. But this year we have seen this not given. Exaggerated fall is what I heard in the Liverpool game, and it is an exaggerated fall. Now the keeper is initiating it, but Havertz, by keeping his feet, I don't really know because Saka did this exact thing for Bayern Munich in the Champions League, where Saka stuck out a leg, draws the contact. There is clear contact, but because Saka initiated it, not necessarily the keeper, I think the same thing happens here. I think Havertz is intentionally keeping his foot down to make sure the contact happens. But it doesn't really matter. It is given, and Saka of all people takes the PK. I was surprised about that. Saka has been good actually at his PKs this year, but I don't like the short run up, and I don't feel like he has to prove himself over and over again. But he likes doing it, and he did again here. And then yeah, so we get to halftime again. Arsenal were good, but it did feel like that score did flatter them. At least I shouldn't say that PK I guess covered up a little bit where they were good, but they had their issues as far as a lot of looks on goal, uh, but in Bournemouth we're not. So what was going to happen? Bournemouth did try to change a little bit, but let's see. Arsenal were able to turn them over really quickly. This actually probably could have been a goal as well. Havertz gets the ball in the box, tries to play it to Saka. Saka's shot is saved, but it's a good dive by Havertz. Maybe he probably could have done a little bit better there. But then Bournemouth finally start to wake up a little bit. So they get Odegaard in a situation where he's collecting the ball with two around him. This almost looks like a trap. Clivert and Alex Scott collide into him, win the ball off Partey. Then Bournemouth have the break on. Scott dribbles into the box, finds Clivert, forces a very good Raya save. And then we get to the second goal. There are a couple other moments here as well. Almost Bournemouth were just doing better to at least get some touches into the box, make Arsenal defend a little bit. But then, lo and behold, they get the second, and Arsenal weren't as nearly as high flying in the second half. But it doesn't matter because they do get the important security blanket because it happens in the 70th minute. So Havertz has dropped very deep to help Arsenal build out. Ben White gets it, plays the ball over the top to find Saka. Saka controls it well. Finds Havertz, who has joined them, and then plays it to Odegaard. Odegaard tries a through ball. That's blocked, but Rice it continues his run, and he's able to run onto the loose ball before losing it. And then he lays it off to Trossard, kind of to the left side of the penalty area. This is on purpose. Rice knows where Trossard is, so this is very, very impressive by Rice here. And Trossard, first time finish. Doesn't think about touching it. Doesn't think about chopping inside or stopping. No, hits it first time, and it hits it hard and true enough to sneak in. And he's been massive for them down the stretch. And I did say he is their Jota in many respects. And it's a massive goal. He had almost a like flop goal versus I don't say flop goal, but kind of a mishit goal versus Wolves for that first goal as well. A couple of weeks ago, and he's been important for them. Didn't necessarily have his best game for Spurs, but he's been very good in all the other games. I think he got the first goal versus Chelsea in that big 5-0 game, but it was the first one that mattered. And then we get to the other controversy. So Philip Billing has since come on for Alex Scott to provide maybe almost like a two striker partnership to give Billing and Solanke ways to kind of basically bully maybe David Raya into box, and that's what they do. So Billing and Solanke brought on to make Raya uncomfortable. And what here is Gabriel basically is bumped, and he bumps into Solanke. And that kind of pushes Solanke into Raya, but he just kind of bumps into him. It's not like it's not like he's pushing him. It's not like his arms are going at him. Uh, but it's enough to kind of make it Raya not catch the ball that he probably could have gotten, or he punched the ball. He basically misses the punch, and chaos ensues after that. Ryan Christie strikes the post, and then Semenyo is able to put the ball away at the end to make it 2-1 with 15-ish minutes to go. But it is ruled out, and again, I don't really think this is much different than what Ben White's been able to get away with Arsenal all year on corner kicks. But then that said, keepers have been babied all year. I'm thinking about Allison versus Man City in the first game. Allison got lucky with that. And yesterday with Dean Henderson versus Man United, something very similar happened. And so I can't say this is inconsistent with what they've done. Uh, there was a moment, I think, versus Luton and maybe Everton, or Luton and Bournemouth. Luton and Burnley. I think there was a goal that was ruled out for something similar as well. But or maybe it was reversed. But I remember that being a critical. But and I think maybe it was it Forest versus. There was another one that featured Burnley in middle of the year where a goal was either allowed to happen or didn't happen because of some contact on a keeper. But I don't know. Maybe it doesn't really factor in that much. 2-1 though, it would have made Arsenal fans sweat. It would have been squeaky bum time, as they say. But it doesn't. They're able to get away with it. And then it looked like Gabriel actually scored a cracker of a goal to make it 3-0. to kind of walk off. That was ruled out for an offsides, but Declan Rice was able to do it anyways. So here we have it's a really nice move though. So Martinelli first has come on. He wins the ball, plays it to Jesus, who sets come on as well. Has a nice quick touch to Party, and then there's a touch forward to Odegaard. Odegaard that carries it upfield. Odegaard finds Jesus, continuing his run, and then Jesus does well to carry it into the box and feeds Rice with a long run going across from him. It's a very clever layoff by Jesus here, who had to do a lot to actually get this off. So first, he had some nice touches to under control to kind of drag defenders on him, opening the space for Rice to kind of run onto. Rice makes a nice little delayed disguised run that just kind of goes unmarked. No one sees him, and Rice then once he gets the ball is able to put it past Travers with a nice little hard and low finish. So there you go. Rice being a little more box to box. I think that's what his role really is. And going forward for as far as England goes, that could be a problem. Because I think the idea will be Southgate to try to play Rice almost like a single pivot, and I don't really know how that really works. And we've seen that the games that Arsenal have really struggled in for the most part. You look back to Aston Villa, the last game that they lost, or possibly where the title was slipped, will be because Rice played versus Aston Villa, not necessarily Jorginho or Partey wasn't available. That was like the last game. That was the last game in the league. They also had the Bayern game, but uh, he doesn't. I don't think that suits him. His best role, being a holder, being someone that wants to stay in place because he wants to run with the ball. He wants to get involved. He's a fantastic runner as well. I think he's not maybe not the best passer, but he's a fantastic at progressing the ball upfield because he's really good running and carrying it with it, especially down the touchline. So he's more of an eight. And it's one of those awkward situations where I don't really know if you brought him in to be your main DM. He's not Rodri. Not many people are, to be fair. But just that's just the only kind of critique you can say. It's not really a critique either. It's just I'm trying to praise Rice while I'm saying that. I do think Arsenal though need to keep that in mind as far as next season goes. Uh, so as far as the stats goes, Arsenal 2.4 xG, Bournemouth 1, only 7 shots, but they did have the majority. Actually, pretty much all of them came in the second half. Only 2 on target though. Salaki really wasn't able to get involved. Unfortunate for him. Arsenal with 25 shots, 9 on target. They exploded in the first half with 16 shots though. 340, 84 passes, 84%. That's a small passing number for Arsenal, where we've seen they get 500 easily. Now they did play Tomiyasu instead of like a Zinchenko. I don't know if that maybe factored in a little bit. Tomiyasu was very good though, very good at defensively. You don't really remember Bournemouth really or Semenyo really being able to do any kind of terror on that side. Tomiyasu was quite good at being able to be in position there. But that is something to maybe think about. But so I mentioned Trossard and Odegaard. Party back really is a lift for them, as I mentioned as well. And then Saliba for the title run-in is different. I don't really know how much I believe in Gabriel. I think that's one of my little concerns here because Gabriel had a couple really uh-ohs that could have actually led to early goals for Bournemouth, and Saliba was able to help him out. But I'm on record saying I think Arsenal would have won the title last year had Saliba not been hurt. I think that was an absolute crushing. Now, maybe not. Maybe they were kind of running on fumes, just the whole squad in general. Jesus wasn't able to finish, and he was kind of in and out of the squad. They were missing Zinchenko. Saka wasn't really himself either. But really, playing having to Rob Holding versus West Ham versus Southampton versus Forest and versus Man City. It was just that absolutely was crushing. So they have Saliba now for the title run. Does that really factor in? David Raya is going to win the Golden Glove. I don't really think Raya's had to work that much, to be honest. Saliba has been Arsenal have been amazing, just at not really allowing many looks at their goal all year. So it's not going to happen as far as player of the season kind of award. I think I saw Saliba's played every single minute for Arsenal this season, which is absolutely remarkable as well. And I don't think he's infallible. I think on the ball when he has the ball at his feet, he's not really the most comfortable with it. I think you can say, but out of possession, he is. You want a defender to defend first, and he is as good as any of them at that kind of a trait. and he's got him for the title run. So if Odegaard's been amazing as well, he's second player of the season, or Saka for the most part of the season as well. But Saliba deserves a shout, no doubt about it. And then one thing I do want to add is people online attack Arsenal for being boring, maybe too defensive minded. And I think when they had their first choice 11, they're anything but boring. I just think they've had issues with that. I also think they're boring when they have Declan Rice playing as their six and not someone like a Party. So I think that kind of shows up as well. Because really, the last time that they did that was Aston Villa, and as we saw, and they had their moment versus Man City. If you beat Man City, none of this matters. They did beat Man City at the Emirates. It's something the Liverpool were never able to do in their title run-ins. The one time the Liverpool beat Man City was when they won the title in 2000, 2020. So, or I guess it was December of 19. But I think that kind of what really is going to be the factor is they had Aston Villa at the Emirates, and it was in between the Bayern Munich kind of ties, so that kind of factored in as well. Maybe they were leggy a little bit, but that is possibly where this goes down. So that's something to really think about. And then with Bournemouth, you don't want to necessarily harp on the ref decisions, but it's impossible not to. But that said, they could have been playing down a man after 12 minutes. It is worth saying that as well. I do think just in general, something does need to change in how they're doing VAR. It takes too long as well. I think why not? What is the harm in just having a ref go to the monitor himself and allowing a ref to overrule themselves? I don't really think that's the worst idea. I think you need to get away from clear and obvious, uh, because a wrong decision is a wrong decision. So I think that needs to kind of go into it a little bit. Uh, and then the PK, the PK I can live with. I don't like the foul call on Raya. Because again, I think Ben White's gotten away with that. I just think it's soft. I don't really think it's a foul. I think Gabriel has fouled it into him, or is pushing Solanke into Raya. So Gabriel technically is the one fouling. But another thing too is someone, it's Gabriel or Saliba, is holding Billing's arm, not allowing Billing to attack this ball as well. That's a foul. That could have been called as a PK. And you looked at this. So it probably doesn't matter in that much, but it would have made it 2-1. So I do think it's not nothing. And as far as just kind of one last thing to kind of say was Solanke was isolated, but one person that did come to life a little bit in the second half was Kluivert. So that was good to see. And Bournemouth have done well to just kind of give themselves a something to to think about for next season. Ariola's debut season, it went a lot better than I was expecting, and a lot better than I think a lot of people were expecting. So we'll see what is in the cards for them next year. And then I'll move on to Man City and Wolves. And so you saw what Arsenal were able to do. Put a little pressure on Man City, but not really. Or they do get the first goal with a PK though, kind of a little controversial. This is maybe more defensible. I can't really say. I've seen this not given this year, and I've always kind of wondered why. If you're fouling someone, well, in basketball, if a 3-point shooter shoots the shot and then you foul the arm, it's still a foul. That's basically what happens here. Gvardiol goes for the kick and then kind of clatters into, I think it's Aït-Nouri. It's Aït-Nouri is fouling him. So there was people online, or at least I saw some videos saying that this probably shouldn't have been given. I was a bit surprised by that, but it doesn't really matter because they had no one to defend Holland. Holland found out that he's not just 6'4" and an athletic monster. He can also jump really high in the air, and he can actually use his head to score goals because he jumps in and he looks like Michael Jordan in the air here, or I guess Anthony Edwards. He is towering. It's almost you almost feel sorry because I think it's over Semedo. It's almost like he's jumping. His legs are as high as like Semedo's like shoulders here. He gets unreal high, and after a cross from that comes in from Rodri for the second goal, and then the third comes possibly good. This could have been a sending off. It's a very good goal by Kovacic. But what happens here is Holland actually comes in to be a little to help out a little bit with the build up. We don't always see that. Usually he's just kind of being a statue. Holland was way more involved in the build up, and it showed in the touches. He had like 30 touches this game. He's gone halves where he's only had 6. So he does that, and what he does is he brings Max Kilman to come with him. And then after a little 1-2, Kovacic gets the ball. He sees that Kilman is wrong side of Holland. There's absolutely no one in the other space, and it's just an easy ball for Kovacic to play. Man City don't always play this ball though, so Kovacic did, and Haaland was able to to sprint, and then it looks like he's going to be 1v1, and then he's taken from behind by it's either Ait Nouri or Semedo as well, and I have no idea how this wasn't a sending off. And then Haaland was able to score the other goal, 3-0, 3-1. In the second half, Wolves were able to get a second or a quick goal in the second half to maybe make it interesting. With Wang Lee Chan, it comes from I think they were able to. I think it's Bellegarde who since come on. He came on for uh, Mario Lemena. He has a cross into the box that Ederson just makes a complete mess out of. He's out of the box. He tries to punch it and misses, and it falls to a Wang, and then open goal. He's able to put it away. So good finish. It wasn't the easiest finish because he had to take it quickly. He couldn't control it, but but it doesn't matter because basically, like 50 seconds after that, City score again, and it is Ederson's able to find Phil Foden, and then Foden does what again we haven't seen anyone do all year, other than Kevin De Bruyne. He looks up and he plays Holland in, making a run behind with a wonderful, 30, 40-yard pass up in the air. He has a nice little height to it. Holland's able to collect it, and then Holland's able to cut inside Max Kilman. Kilman, it was unfortunate. Kilman's a good defender, but this was out of his league. And then Holland was able to, get onto his left foot, and then from there, he's got the best finish I think in world football. And it just feels like Holland can do this every single game. I think the funny thing is City haven't played to his strengths. They've been trying to make him into this maybe target man in the box, but they don't really like crossing the ball either. So it's almost like he's been a decoy in many respects. Have two center backs kind of holding on Holland, and then we'll try to get Foden. We'll try to get our clever players into the half spaces to try to get some shots off. But here it just feels like City can do this way more than they do, and I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing that they found out now, or maybe that's just kind of these a couple of the games where Pep allows them to do this because they did this versus Luton Town in an FA Cup game as well that I remember. And then Alvarez comes on and was able to get the fifth one. Holland wanted to stay on. He wanted to be the first of or the only one of three EPL players that have ever had 5 goals in a game, like Alan Shearer and someone else. But Pep took him off. There was a little dust up about that. I don't think that got nearly the attention that solid dust up with Klopp got. I'll just kind of put that out there. It's not really anything. Holland kind of laughed it off at the end. He clearly wanted to stay on though. He did look frustrated. But then Alvarez came on and does what he does. Alvarez is a good finisher, and just I think the problem for him is just he's a different player and he's not really a striker. So he's a Jota. Jota would be a perfect example of another kind of player like that. Like Alvarez isn't a midfielder. He doesn't really offer you much in transition, but in the box he's really good at getting a shot off, as we saw. So that's kind of it. The Man City lineup was Walker, Kanji, Ake, and Gvardiol, but Rodri and Kovacic. That's another thing Pep's done. He's realized don't have Rodri by himself. Rodri can probably do that job, but it's pointless when you don't really need it. And Kovacic helps you with protection. Kovacic is really good at running in for build-up. And Kovacic, as we saw in this game, has an eye for a pass. Someone like if a Kanji is playing in that role, I don't think he plays that pass. Maybe John Stones does, but that's kind of it. So we didn't see a Kanji or Ake, played in the midfield or forced into midfield like we've seen. Gvardiol seems to have a hold a little bit on that left back role, and he started to have some fun as well. He started to be a little more of a goal threat himself, but also he's found a lot of confidence with his feet. Wolves were not able to get the ball off him, but that is another thing too. By Man City getting the opening goal in the manner that they did, that does change that. That allows them to dictate the game. That changes how Wolves have to press. And when you have to press, that means you have to play a high line. And when you play a high line versus Holland, it's over. So the first goal did factor in. It did matter. But I mean, that's I think it is PK. So and I like being ones to complain about stuff like that. I don't think I can here. Another thing that Pep's done is he's recognized played Bernardo Silva at right wing. He recognized the role. He's not necessarily going to offer a whole much 1v1 stuff, but what he is good at doing is he is good at chopping inside. He is good at beating a man and good at getting a cross off, essentially. Now, he's maybe not going to offer you goals from that area. He's maybe not going to offer you runs in behind, but what he's going to always be available for there, and you always have Kyle Walker maybe doing an overlap as well. Uh, but he recognizes that role and does it better than Phil Foden. Maybe Doku has done a decent job in the couple of times that he's played there, but I think he's your best choice, right wing, at least for now. We'll see what they do in the summertime. And then Foden was able to play a little bit on the left shoulder, and then it was with Kevin De Bruyne. So they found a way to play Kevin De Bruyne and Foden, and it didn't clash nearly as much. So because that's been another thing that we've seen in a number of these games too. And so City do look good, unfortunately. Um, they do have a game for Spurs. They do have that Fulham game before that. So does Pep do something weird? Does maybe he try to fit Jack Grealish in there? Does he try to play Mateus Nunez? Maybe he goes with a weird lineup, and maybe something could happen. But that would be kind of the only way how I see this kind of backfiring, to be honest. So that's where we are at. 20 shots, 12 on goal, 12 on target. Wolves only 2 shots and 1. Wolves, it is rough because I thought they had moments where they were doing okay. Man City were doing very, very well to have a lot of people around the ball. And Wolves are doing well to play out of it for the most part, but just a few times when they did just have a few poor passes. I think it was Bertrand Traore had a couple that were off. The it was to who played left back. It wasn't Aït-Nouri. Aït-Nouri played on the right. That was another thing too. Uh, Hugo Breno had a couple really, really poor passing decisions. That actually led to the second goal. I think Rodri helped win the ball off a couple of these. You can't turn the ball over to City, and they were able to to score that way. I mean, but the story is Holland. It's just something has happened. Something since the second half of Forest game when Holland came on. City remembered how they played or how to play to his strengths. This is the Man City team that we saw from the beginning of last year to like last February, essentially, and they've gone away from it. Uh, it does open the game up a little bit, and Pep maybe really doesn't like those open transition games. But if nothing else, this is something that you can, I guess, go to. I just feel like you could do this way more than they have. Uh, you could be way more direct because of what he offers you, but also they don't cross the ball like ever. And you've got someone that will always win almost any kind of aerial duel. So it is strange how they just haven't really played to his strengths that much. And the few times when they have gone up against I guess pretty good physical center backs that can also play in a high line, maybe he struggled a little bit in there. But at those most of the games that they haven't either they haven't had Kevin De Bruyne or they maybe it was Foden or maybe they just weren't able to to get those runs in behind or to find those through balls. So that's kind of it. Kovacic and Rodri is a good balance, and I'm surprised we just haven't seen that more. I think that's another thing as well. Uh, and we'll see what they do versus Fulham and Spurs. Uh, I think it is kind of boring because to watch Man City do this again. They didn't have Holland from December to through February. Kevin De Bruyne out first half of the year. Stones missed 85% of the season. Rodri with the red card missed 3 games, and those are the only games that City have lost. They did drop a couple points here and there. I do think it was just Arsenal and Liverpool. It is just they are a machine, and the only thing to say is they're a machine, but it's still going to be under 90 points this year. And I do think people, Liverpool have to think about it, and Arsenal as well. This was the year to get them. I don't imagine Pep's going to make this mistake again next season. But so I mean we'll see maybe Anthony Robinson, Fulham can maybe do something. Arsenal slept up versus Fulham as well. I mentioned losing points to Aston Villa, getting clopped by them. Uh, they got clapped by Fulham. They I think they even had a lead, and I think so. The first goal, or the second game of the season, they drew 2-2, and then they went to Craven Cottage after the West Ham game and lost that game, and that was probably the worst that Arsenal had looked all season. Uh, so Arsenal need Fulham to kind of return the favor a little bit. So we'll see if they do. And with Wolves, I think the only thing I can say is with risk comes reward and punishment. They were trying to play through City pressing them, and they weren't really able to. They just weren't good enough at doing it. But another thing too is Wolves beat Man City. Both they had Pedro Neto that game back in November. But another thing they had no Rodri for City as well. But another thing they had is they had Craig Dawson able to play that game, and they were able to play a little more tighter than we saw. There were a couple of times when they played Hugo Bueno. They tried Hugo Bueno versus Arsenal. They tried Semedo as a center back. Now I don't know if it was an injury issue to Bueno or not. And so they tried Semedo, who's a fullback or a kind of a pacey fullback as well. And Semedo got just thumped by Holland on that side. And they tried Ait Nori to almost be like a wingback to try to maybe they thought the idea is maybe you could get Semedo and Ait Nori and I guess Wang or Mateus Cunha to do basically overload a side and really attack down that side, but didn't really come to fruition and it really did expose them at the back. So I think missing Craig Dawson, a savvy defender. He's going to be slow, but it's maybe he knows how to defend him a little bit more. Maybe he gives him Holland a little more space. Maybe he's better in the air. I don't necessarily know how much that factored in or not, but that is something. It is unfortunate for Wolves fans as well because you finally got to see mostly 11 that Gary O'Neill would have liked. You finally saw Wang and Cunha back, but with the back line being what it was, that wasn't really going to matter. Um, and so that's kind of it where we are with them. And then I'll move on to Liverpool and Spurs, and it goes 4-2. First goal from Salah, and then Robertson just kind of coming out of nowhere. Not what you would have expected. Liverpool though were very good and worthy of that score line. Gets to halftime, and then 3-0 with Gakpo, and then Elliott with the fourth with probably goal of the month for Liverpool. I mean that's just a wonder strike, and it was a wonderfully worked goal as well. And then Richarlison came on. Spurs made a bunch of changes. Richarlison on, and then Son was able to make it 4-2 with 15 minutes to go in the game. And you're like, is this going to happen again? 'Cause a year ago, Liverpool beating Tottenham 3-0 at Anfield, and all of a sudden it was 3-3 after Richarlison came on and also got a late goal. And then Jota was able to get one at the very end to make it 4-3. And then the year before, Tottenham came to Liverpool, and it was a chance for Liverpool to actually they controlled their fate at that point. They had the hold of the table, and they drew that game. So that's Tottenham coming to Liverpool have been a bit of a sticky situation, but Liverpool at Spurs have also been a sticky situation. This is the game that basically Liverpool might lose the title on because of that Diaz call and the sending off for Curtis Jones. And the very late game winner that Matip had the own goal with. So uh, that's kind of setting up where we are. Spurs, had the dramatic, comeback almost versus Arsenal. They had a bit of a slide, and then they lost to Chelsea in the midweek, also conceding on two set pieces. So that wasn't very very positive. No Udogi starting the show. Madison looked off it, and we didn't actually see him start. It's maybe uh, a bit of a mistake though, because Madison came on, looked much better. But another thing too is Richarlison was on, and Madison had someone to play those to be creative, to play those through balls in behind. Son was able to play on the left side, looked far more dangerous than what they were showing with Brennan Johnson in that first half. Kulishevsky was not able to do anything with Andy Robertson. Once Brennan Johnson was on, things were different. Yeah, Liverpool took Robertson off in the second half, brought on Joe Gomez, and it was different too. I think that basically they get the first goal because Brennan Johnson makes a nice run. Joe Gomez isn't able to read it, and it's a nice little square ball to Richarlison. So that's kind of just where we are there. It was a strange start to the game. Liverpool didn't really have an attack until like the 10th minute, but that's when Saka kind of had a cross shot that struck the post. But I thought early on they were kind of sloppy from the back. Addison had a couple of like uh-ohs that could have been punished, but after about the 14th, 15th minute, they started to get into a groove. So we have a nice chance here. Salah after strike, the Salah strike in the post. But I want to talk about this because Gakpo was heading at the Saka, needs clearing away, but good early intent after Saka kind of crosses the post. But the ball finds Elliott after Robertson plays him in, and Elliott has a nice little touch to float the ball into the box. Now, someone else maybe not have maybe wouldn't have seen this idea, but it's a clever idea by Elliott, and that's basically what creates the chance. And that's kind of like the thing I'm noticing when Elliott plays. The ball moves when he plays. It's not you're not allowing Spurs to refine their shape. Elliott's really quick with his decision making in a way that some of the midfielders, Szoboszlai has been kind of poor in that respect. That in a way I wouldn't have expected, and so has Curtis Jones when he's played. Elliott keeps the ball moving. Alexis McAllister does as well. So that's kind of Elliott was given a little bit of a different role. He was playing in midfield. I was a little bit worried because usually Elliott and Salah both are kind of very left foot dominant, playing on the right side. But it worked out. Elliott was quite good at keeping his width when he needed to, and quite good at getting Trent to keep width. They weren't making Trent count inside because that's sometimes been an issue with Liverpool on the right side. They've used Salah to offer the width, and no one that never works ever. This game we saw Salah being a little bit more inside, getting more touches into the box, starting into the box more, and it showed. And another thing too was when I saw the starting lineup, I did not like it initially. Usually, I want Darwin Núñez to start when he's healthy, but Gakpo through the middle has driven me nuts for the whole season because they don't ask him to play as a number 9. They ask him to play almost like a Havertz role, and I just don't think that's the best way to get out of him. In this game, it was different. Gakpo was being in the box more. He was being ahead of the ball. He was not playing like he did versus West Ham. And we saw Diaz and Gakpo kind of switch. Diaz was playing through the middle. Gakpo was going out left, and it was the front three. The movement was significantly better, and it showed. It showed in the shot attempts. They had like 14 or 16 at halftime. Spurs only had one, and it was a very similar game to the Bournemouth and Arsenal game for the first half. And so but they also the way they were using Trent was different as well. They weren't making Trent do this midfield inverted stuff. They were just making him be a fullback. So better defensively, better in positions to hold with. And Trent always is really good with his delivery. Whether or not it's from the middle trying to do a through ball or from being out wide trying to do a cutback. And Liverpool get one of those goals because Trent makes a run in behind that Alexis McAllister sees, and it's a ball over to the far post that basically leads to that's the Robertson goal. Robertson gets it and then passes Salah, and then Salah has a shot that forces a save, and then Robertson is able to clean it up. But it comes because of where Trent is and the role that he's playing. So Liverpool were significantly better here. So that was positives. There's a lot of wondering at halftime. Well, where has this Liverpool team been? That kind of says it. They did play different. So that it showed. It really did. And then we have another chance. Elliott to Salah forces a save. Then Elliott has a rebound cleared off the line, but the tempo is starting to be set for the game. Elliott presses to pick the ball off Sarr. Liverpool have breakaway. Elliott plays Salah in behind. Royal, a theme of the first half. Royal did not enjoy Salah. Salah then gets a shot off. Vicario saves it. Elliott there for the rebound. And then there was a chance for Spurs. Maybe the one little scare that they had. It wasn't really a shot, but this was a scare. So they do quite well to actually keep the ball a little bit. So Brendan Johnson is able to eventually get a cross off, flashes it across the goal. Kulishevsky does a better job anticipating this. It's possibly a goal because Robinson was a little off it. But they did well to keep the ball under pressure, and then Sarr gets the ball, plays it to Johnson on the wing, and Johnson made a run and had a nice little square ball on the left side. Just no one was anticipating it. But they also weren't playing with a striker, so that's something to say as well. And then Liverpool do get the first goal with Salah. So it starts with a passing from the back. So Endo gets it, has a nice little pick out to find Cody Gakpo on the left wing. And then Gakpo collects it, has space to look up, sees his options. It cuts inside, and then floats a terrific in-swinging cross over everyone that finds Salah making a run behind Royal. And then Salah heads it home. Vicario probably could have done better, but Royal could definitely do better. But the chance felt coming. But another thing that was noticeable was early on, again, it wasn't the front three were not being in the same positions that we had seen for the last few weeks. Luis Diaz was not just being on the left side, and Gakpo was not just being forced to be in the middle or dropping for the ball. Salah was not just standing on the touchline to receive it. Salah was closer to Gakpo. Gakpo was in the box more, or when Gakpo was going out left, Luis Diaz was in the box more. So it was giving the Spurs back line way more to think about, and because of that, you were able to get Robertson higher up as well, and you're able to get Trent Alexander-Arnold both keeping their width, and you're able to just kind of get your eights in a better position as well, and just they were able to squeeze Spurs really, and Spurs had no way really out. And then there was another chance here. Diaz on the breakaway left side, finds Salah making a run through the middle. Diaz has a nice ball to pick him out. Salah collects it, but Royal, at least this time, is able to get a foot on the ball. But again, it's just really easy to get behind the Spurs back line. And then there was a little controversy here. It eventually didn't matter, but I did want to just kind of bring this up. Liverpool here pressed Spurs to making a mistake. That was the thing that was really showing up too. Spurs were not able to play through Liverpool's press, and for some reason they weren't really able to go long because Son's going to lose any kind of aerial duel to Kwanzaa or Virgil van Dijk. Kulishevsky is not really going to beat Robinson in behind, so that's not really going to be a problem. They did have Brennan Johnson on the right side, but they just weren't able to do that kind of switch over. And I think Kwanzaa would have been able to handle Brennan Johnson at least pace for pace as well. But Liverpool's press was just really, 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 really spot on. Spurs were not really able to play through it much. And not only just that, they were playing into it and playing into traps and turning it over. So here, I think Elliott or someone wins the ball. Gakpo has the ball on the left side of the box, chops inside to go around Mickey Van de Ven, and they step on Gakpo's foot. And they missed the ball. There's no contact on the ball, but nothing is given because the explanation is it's an exaggerated fall. And again, given what Havertz did yesterday, I think that was an exaggerated fall as well. So inconsistent refereeing here. It ends up not showing up, but it could have. Getting a second early goal would have definitely felt a lot better than it just being one. With Liverpool, we're starting to blow some chances again, and I've started having flashbacks a little bit with that. But again, and then actually after that, Spurs actually had a counter, but Robinson and Kwanzaa did well to sprint back, and Spurs then had to cut back ball, and nothing really was able to happen. Endo was quite everywhere in that first half as well. Endo was quite good. Uh, and then there are a couple of chances here. So the chance to come at high clip. So they keep winning the ball back and really good at threading balls in between the lines. So Trent has a wonderful line splitting pass to find Salah, who one times it to Gakpo. Gakpo trying to flick it back for a return. It's just a little off. But Liverpool then winning back again. Spurs can't clear it. Alexander-Arnold has a shot. That's deflected. It finds Diaz, who tries a somersault kick. Goes out of bounds, but the pressure is starting to come up again. And then there's another chance here. Alexander-Arnold's shot comes wide, but it comes from Liverpool pressing Spurs immediately after a shot on goal or a shot after a goal kick. Elliott wins the ball in the penalty area. They move to find Alexander-Arnold. His shot just misses. And then McAllister has a nice little vision to find Trent before this. But Liverpool just moving the ball quicker in this game in the final third than they had. That seemed to be the difference. And it showed in the second goal with Robinson. So a lot of chances, no end product at this point other than Salah's. So here they are able to make it count for a second time. And here Elliott pokes the ball off Sarr. Gakpo gets it, looks for options, plays it wide to Elliott making a run. Elliott has a decent shot/cross with his right foot. It's parried away, but Liverpool are able to keep the ball again and recycle again. Trent then runs on to the loose ball, plays it to Endo, and then Endo finds McAllister, who first times it to a through ball to pick out Alexander-Arnold, who snuck in behind, keeping the width. And then Trent floats the ball all the way across the field, picks out Robinson. Robinson volleys it to Salah, and then Salah hits it first time. Vicario has to make a save. He does, but he parries it right into Robinson's path. No one's able to see Robinson continuing his run. He does well to stay on sides, and he scores the tap-in. Imagine that scoring tap-ins is allowed, and Liverpool have not been able to do that for the last 2 or 3 months as well. So there you go. I mean, maybe a kind of note I had, cheeky note, was maybe all Liverpool players needed to see to get over their scoring jitters was seeing Robinson put the ball away. So it's not just a force field. If someone like Robinson can score, all of us should be able to score. But Robinson was fantastic as well. Not just bullying Kulusevski, but one of the reasons they were winning the ball high up in that first half was Robinson was just all over. It felt like he was an extra man that Spurs were not able to cover, and just every time, just it seemed like Kulusevski was out or Pedro Porro was kind of forced to kind of be under pressure. Just Liverpool were very, very good with their front press, and Spurs had no way out of it. So at halftime, the thoughts I had was the lineup did kind of worry me, but I was surprised for the reasons as I said. Trent Alexander-Arnold being a more of a traditional fullback was better than necessarily him being inverted, and Elliott was making the right decision in the box and was a pressing beast, was winning the ball back. And Spurs outshot 14-1. It felt like it could have been more. Like the score could have been even worse. But the formation to try to play with an extra man in midfield for me didn't really work. Son through the middle they've been struggling with that all year. But they sat Madison to try to it was a midfield of like kind of a workhorse midfield. And I think you can understand why he did that. He thought he would need the extra man to kind of help them when it came to winning some duels in the second half. I think the surprise was Sarr wasn't able to handle Elliott. He probably thought maybe Sarr could do that, but Basuma and Betancourt just weren't really influential either. No one was really able to have that kind of killer pass, that kind of that ability to kind of find the open space. And Madison came on, and that completely changed. So Madison had been rough, but there was a game where there was a situation where you could see he would have been someone to, to find some pockets to drop for the ball to help them with their build up because they were really struggling with that. Emerson Royal at left back, they didn't really have options. But as we saw in the second half, the option that Ange went to turned out to be a good one, and we'll probably see that versus Man City, in my opinion. Oliver Skip came on and did a job at left back I was not expecting because he traditionally was kind of a midfielder. Obviously, that's probably not his trade to play at left back. But one thing he did was, he locked up Salah, and then when he was able to get forward, he made some pretty good runs forward that Liverpool weren't expecting. And he has the little pass that leads to the second or third goal, or the second goal for Son. So uh, that's something to at least there's some hope for Spurs fans to think about the way that they played in the second half. But before we get to that, Liverpool kind of touted it on a little bit. So 50th minute, 3-0, Gakpo. And it looked like Pedro Porro had gotten behind Robertson, but Robertson recovered well, won the ball, found Diaz, and then Diaz has a long switch to pass to Salah on. Salah looked like he had his energy again. Salah looked like Salah again. But Salah here lost the duel, but Elliott is quickly following up behind, and he basically is able to draw the ball loose. Elliott then chops it back to his left foot to see his options, floats a very nicely weighted cross into the box that Gakpo then jumps Romero on. And there you go. Gakpo is 6'4", 6'3", obviously athletic, obviously can jump. And just so many times in this situation this year, Gakpo would have been behind the play. Here, he was actually in the box. He was there to be a number 9, there to put away a chance, and it did. And funny thing is, if it wasn't Elliott's cross was so good, it probably would have found Diaz that was actually coming in from the behind him. But it was great vision by Elliott as well. It's not just the vision; you need to be able to pull it off. And Elliott's had a really good. Elliott's come in and actually he hasn't started every game, and I don't really love him when he's played as an attacker because to me he seems like a midfielder. Uh, but that partnership with him and Salah was very very good. Elliott's one of the best pressers on the team. His engine room has really surprised me. I've been worried a little bit about his physical build. That has not. He has shut me up when it comes to that. And just again, he sees things that just I don't think Sloboshai plays that pass. And I've liked Sloboshai this year, but it's just Sloboshai probably prefers playing on the left side anyways. He's been forced to kind of be in the Henderson role. But here is something to think about going forward. How is Arne Slot going to play Elliott? If he plays with a 4-2-3-1, you only have 2 midfielders, and then you have a 10. I don't know if Elliott's really your preferable 10. I think Sloboshai is. And then you're going to play with 3 attackers. One you imagine is going to be Salah on the right side, so is Elliott going to be Salah's understudy? That could be iffy if they do kind of change the formation. But at least here, Elliott's played, and I think the one thing that Klopp's going to regret is once Curtis Jones and once Sloboshai returned from injury, Elliott stopped getting starts in midfield, and they're missing chance after chance. So you don't really know how much that would have really factored in, but it possibly could have. Maybe Elliott would have been able to put some more on a platter because a couple of those games that they dropped points, Elliott didn't start, especially in midfield. He didn't start. So uh, Elliott was very good. Also out of possession as well. Just quite stellar. And we were just getting started a little bit as well. So 55th minute, 4-0. And so a crossfield switch to Robinson. Robinson tries to find Salah. Royal is there to kind of head it away, but it's not headed far enough. Salah is able to get the ball anyways and then lays it off to Elliott. Elliott has a lot to do here, though. But he takes a couple of touches to set himself and then fires a dart that screams into the net from distance. And what a strike. What a strike that was. He was a sensation all game. Just, again, really good understanding with Salah as well. Nice little connection and chemistry there. Last season, I thought they clashed. Because they're both left-footed players that like playing on the right side. Another thing, too, is I thought Elliott was very lax in his tracking back. And the way that they were playing Trent Alexander-Arnold last season, Elliott there were times last season when Elliott wasn't doing the defensive role. He's fixed that this year. So credit to him. He was only 20 last year as well. It is worth saying that. And he was coming off a broken foot. But man, he is someone that I've really got some optimism for and excited for. So I just hope the new coach coming in doesn't necessarily hurt that development, but we'll have to see. And then again one of the funny things about Sloboshai and Jones returning from injury is and Gravenberch as well is those people were played in midfield over Elliott. And so 4-0, Spurs only with 2 shots at this point. There you go. that it's time to just bring on the kids, just to maybe get a goal to end it, have a picnic the second half, and then so Klopp takes off Endo for Kid Badicic, takes off Robertson for Gomez. He eventually takes off McAllister as well. And after that, Liverpool lost all control in the game, and then Spurs made their changes. He brought on Richarlison, he brought on Lo Celso, Madison, and Oliver Skip. And again, frankly, it is a blessing they didn't start with this lineup. So they get an early chance here. Allison has to make a save. It's offsides, but a warning. So Madison on, and after a nice little 1-2 finish with him and Kulishevsky. Madison finds Richarlison making a run off Van Dijk's shoulder, plays in behind. Richarlison then squares it to Son, very easy. And it is a warning, but it calls danger. Like the first thing that Madison did was try to play Richarlison in. Richarlison was able to, maybe he was offsides, but no, it wasn't. Richarlison was in, and Liverpool were able to get back into shape, but then Madison got the ball and drew a free kick. So Madison, just within the first like 30 seconds into the game, was all of a sudden causing a problem. He was finding those spaces and pockets that Liverpool weren't really able to cover. And it was another thing that you saw was Pedro Porro was significantly more influential as well. I thought Liverpool mostly had him, which Robertson and Luis Diaz basically locked up Pedro Porro and Kulishevsky that entire first half. The second half was not necessarily the case. And Gomez isn't necessarily the same kind of player as Robinson. He's not going to press nearly as high. He's a little bit more defensive minded. And once they switched with Brennan Johnson, that was a different threat there. And Pedro Porro, because Brennan Johnson was looking to kind of play on the back shoulder more, that was allowing Pedro Porro to kind of find ways to get in behind Luis Diaz and to find kind of those pockets Liverpool weren't able to really cover, and they finally get the breakaway here with Charlton. So Basuma has a carry. No one's able to put pressure on him because everyone is starting to kind of Spurs are doing better to recognize where the space is. Brendan Johnson has moved over to the right spot, and he gets behind Gomez, squares it to Richarlison, who finishes. But it's quite clever by Richarlison, who starts off sides on purpose. That's something to think about too. Richarlison is offsides, and he knows it. He's not even looking to get back on sides. When Kwanzaa looks, he thinks he's fine. But when Brendan Johnson gets the ball, then it's a problem because Brendan Johnson is able to carry the ball where Richarlison is behind the ball. So it's a nice little square ball. It's clever. I don't know if necessarily this was done on purpose or not, but it was really clever, and Kwanzaa was pulled by it. And then Klopp took off Allison, and Klopp took off McAllister and Diaz for Gravenberch and Nunez. And I'll get to Nunez later, but Gravenberch wasn't much better. So 76th minute, 4-2. Oliver Skip has come on. Madison plays in the ball, making a run unmarked. That looks like he's kind of closed down. Manages a through ball in between kind of Alexander-Arnold and Kwanzaa. I don't know how he was able to pick this pass out. Finds Richarlison. Richarlison does well to collect it under pressure, and then he's able to find Son somehow. This is really good play by Richarlison. And then Son puts it away. Gravenberch has gone for 5 minutes, and he lets Son go completely unmarked in the box. It's not great. I want to like him, but that is someone I have promise for Elliott. I don't know what I have for Gravenberch. So also the Liverpool paid a lot of money for Gravenberch when they probably for the same amount of fee that West Ham were able to bring in Mo Kudus. So. I don't necessarily have to go with the player. He had a great goal versus Fulham. You can't say, but he needs to get better with his awareness because this it's his man. It really is. Son is just walking in front of him, and Gravenberch allows it to happen. But the funny thing about this game was the last 15 minutes. The first half had everyone asking online, "Where's Liverpool team been? This team wins the title. Why aren't they going to win the league?" And then the last 15 minutes of the game showcased why. So there's a point here where Salah, I don't know how Salah doesn't score this, but Nunez does well to at least win the ball high in the Spurs end, probably gets away with a foul. Salah has the ball, some clever feet, evades defenders, finds Gakpo. Gakpo has a nice little touch flick pass to find Elliott, making a back post run. Elliott has a good right foot. Elliott doesn't try to do something goofy with his left. He has some faith with his right foot. I think Elliott has more faith in his right foot than Salah does with him. So I think that's probably why this works a little bit. And maybe Elliott's worked on that. Elliott does nice to kind of just keep the ball in play. And he puts it into a danger area. Gravenberch is there, takes a swing and hits it. But then Salah is there 3 feet from goal, and he completely misses the ball as well. And had this been a one goal kind of game or a tied game at this point, this would have been a nightmare. This would have felt like everything repeating all over it again. Thankfully, it didn't really matter. But it's just things like this, weird situations like this where it should have been a goal, and it wasn't. That's what Liverpool's season has been since February. And then Trent basically tried to do a David Beckham, where Gakpo was maybe open for a through ball. Looked nice, but it was kind of wasteful in the end. Trent is again going for like the 60-yard kind of spectacular. Probably only does this because it's 4-2 and he thinks the game's over. But at the same time, it was only 4-2, and if Spurs got another chance, that would have been awkward. And what happens? Spurs do get a chance. But before that as well, Szoboszlai was played in behind by Salah. Very nice little play by Salah. And Szoboszlai tries to go near post and misses. Either Nunez was open for a square ball, or if anything else, he probably could have tried to go a far post. And if maybe before Kakario saves it, Nunez is there for a tap in. So they were starting to miss chances after chances again, and then Spurs get the chance in the 86th minute to really make this kind of unfun. Richarlison is eating Kwanzaa for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he keeps bullying him, confusing him with some runs, gets behind him time after time, after again, and then Son finds him. Allison is forced to make a 1v1 save, so big for Allison here, but the ball's popped up, and Brennan Johnson and Gomez have to basically fight for this 1v1, and Gomez does very well to get a high boot up and to get the ball and not foul Brennan Johnson, because if he fouls him, that's probably a red card. And Brennan Johnson clatters into the post. It was a near disaster because there was 7 minutes of extra time. You make it 4-3. This would have been very, very awkward. But even after that, Spurs got into dangerous areas. There was a final touch. Just the final touch was lacking. Madison had a square ball into the box that just nearly. Romero had a long pick out to Richarlison. Really nice little ball over the top. Spurs were not going long nearly enough the first half. They were much better at that in the second half. Pedro Porro was doing the same thing. And there was a lot of just nearly uh-ohs, nearly moments for them. But and then that was kind of as far as anything that happened in the game that mattered from a Liverpool's perspective. There were 6 minutes of extra time, and the 6 minutes turned out to be a bit of a horror show for Darwin Núñez. So he was offside just multiple times, couldn't time his runs. There was the one time when he actually did, looks like he timed it, and then when he was in the 1v1, he had his head up and he played a very nice ball to Salah. Salah was able to put it away. That should have been the fifth goal, but he was offside. That you can excuse, but he was offside like 3 or 4 times. And it's not the first time. He was offside when he came on versus West Ham as well. He was offside when he came on versus Atalanta. Like the first 5 minutes, he was offside like 3 times. So that's just been it's hard not to be a little annoyed there. But he came on and he had heavy feet. His head was always down. There was another time when he he had the 1v1. He maybe had a chance to maybe square it to Gakpo, and he had a chance to also maybe go around the keeper, and he instead just hit it right at him. Vicario does well to at least come out, but this looked like it probably could have been on, and just that describes him. To be honest, creates so many chances. He is his XG, expected goal tally for the year. People don't really put a lot of faith into this, but it is just kind of a way to gauge a little bit. Is at 19, and I think he's on like 11 or 12 goals for the season. So it's underperforming by 8 or 7, and it's not great to be honest. So he's gonna have 27 big chances missed as of now. It could, and if Klopp plays him the rest of or it plays him a couple of the last 2 games, he could end up with 30 easily. He was at 20 last year, so he's gotten worse on that. His shot conversion rate was at 7% last year. It's 10 this year, so improvement, but not much. And there was a lot of talk a little bit afterwards where he deleted a lot of pictures on Instagram. There's been talks. The Liverpool fans been bullying him, which isn't great either, and not just bullying him, making death threats and some nasty comments to his significant other or girlfriend. But it's hard not to say that this hasn't gone well. And I'll try to stick on to this. I think the main thing going forward is Arne Slot going to come in and ask Darwin Núñez to be as his number 1 striker? I don't necessarily know. And the problem is you can't have your number 1 striker missing that many looks. You just can't. Now, Holland misses a lot of looks too. He's had a lot of big chances missed, but his shot conversion rate is much better. Holland actually finishes his 1v1s. he feels like Darwin Núñez could be that. Now, the problem for him is he's always gonna be compared to Holland, and that's not fair to him. I think it's worth saying that too. And he's only 24, maybe 25. He's still not really reached his prime. He is an athletic unicorn, and he creates chances just by his body type and the ability he's able to just cause defenders hell. He's amazing in the air, so he can be a target man. He's better with his feet than people maybe think. He actually has some pretty good link up play, in my opinion. He's very good at running into channels. He can make these runs through the middle or out wide. So he's very versatile. It's just, and he's got a good shot on him. It's just like a wicked shot on him, to be honest. It's he isn't composed, and when he has time to maybe think about his options, that's when it's scary because maybe he overthinks. He's a bit of a reaction finisher, and sometimes that really helps. We saw that with Newcastle in the beginning of the year. Other times, there's when you can maybe be a little bit more composed with himself. Versus Palace, he had a volley from like I don't know 3 feet away from goal and just hit it right at the keeper. If he picks the side, it goes in. There was a moment where versus Man United where I don't know how Liverpool didn't score that breakaway goal, where he basically he either tried to go for goal with from the worst angle with his left foot, and basically what he did was he squared it across going to no one when he had Slabberslide just for an easy cutback ball. Uh, that should have been an easy one. He had a number of really unfortunate misses versus Everton. Like a lot of his misses have been unlucky, but his misses were unlucky his first year too. So it's 2 years in a row that you've had to deal with this. So uh, I don't know. We'll see what Edwards and Arne Slot are going to, or Richard Hughes are going to do with him. It doesn't seem great though. The idea with the Instagram stuff, uh, and you're not going to be able to find anyone nearly with that kind of output at all. At least not without taking a massive loss. And even if you get lost, if you take a loss, you're not going to find anyone that's able to create that many chances. But is it uh, hopeful? What was the word that I said? Is y- someone that gives you hope? Is it false hope? Is false hope better than like no hope when it leads to the same outcome? I don't really know anymore. But that's just kind of where we are with that. I mean, so last year, at least with the Spurs game, at least they didn't allow the same thing to happen that happened last year because I mentioned Spurs were able to draw, came back from 3 goals. Liverpool were able to make it 3-4-3, and it was almost maybe that scoreline again. But this was not comfortable when it probably should have been. Uh, and so there we go. That's kind of just where we are with that. One thing I want to say with Salah, so he gets a goal and 2 assists. Um, Everyone in the media attacked him last week. I think he's been injured since January. He returned from hamstring and scored versus Brentford and assisted. And people maybe going to forget he had a Ballon d'Or kind of special season the first half of the season, leading up to that New Year's Day versus Newcastle. He straight carried the team in the first half of the season. It was him and Jota that were just anytime Liverpool were in like a weird kind of game, it was him and Jota that were showing up with the finishes. Nunez was helping out here and there, but it wasn't Nunez wasn't getting like the first goal. It was mostly Salah, but Salah was also using Nunez's athleticism to create some of those goals as well. Nunez was always the ball over the top. He was always the outlet when teams were pressing, and you would always have a ball over the top to to get behind that press to play over the press. But we saw a different Salah in this game too. So I think he's been injured. Maybe that little rest versus West Ham helped him. Klopp said he'd been training well. He had his energy, he had his pace again. But he wasn't forced to be on the touchline. They changed his role, and I want to see that going forward. I don't know if Klopp spoke to him or Trent, but Trent was holding with. Him and Elliot were kind of interchanging with that. Sometimes Trent would go into midfield, but Elliot was keeping with. There was never all of them kind of being clumped together. There was always different outlets. There was always different positions on the field that were kind of that had someone at least there. And what you're really doing is you're forcing Salah to when you have people out wide. Salah's not going to want to go where someone else is. He's going to want to go where the space is. So you're forcing Salah to play inside more, and that's really what you need. You need Salah to make runs into the box, not to make runs on the touchline. As for this reason, as you see. But also Gakpo played as a 9 or out wide, not running into midfield looking for the ball. Finally, we saw that because that has been something that is really bugging me too. And if we can get this Gakpo, this gets me really hyped up as well. Maybe Gakpo can be the future. I don't really know. I don't. I think Gakpo as a left winger is maybe better than Luis Diaz. There's been a lot of talk. Luis Diaz might be out as well. There could be a lot of shift over or makeover this coming season because I want to. I've kind of I've uh, kind of gone back and forth all year. Luis Diaz, I think, has been the most frustrating. I mentioned Nunez. Luis Diaz, I think, has been the more frustrating player this year because he's been trying as hard as possible. You can see it. He's done well to recover from injury. He's so good at beating people and being creative with it with the ball. He's good at creating chances. He's good at being hungry. But he's never been a finisher ever, ever, ever. So it's not, and he's older. It doesn't seem like this is something that you can necessarily fix. It's just what he is. Now, if he can be someone to create for a striker, you have someone like Jota to put away the chances, then it's different. But if you're reliant on Luis Diaz to score you a goal in a game when you need to win, you're down or maybe you're tied and you need a game winner or you're winning by one goal and you need to get a second. I don't think Diaz is the player. I do think Gakpo maybe can offer that a little bit more. So I don't know what they're going to do with Diaz. They have Jota. Jota's issue is just can't stay healthy. If Jota was healthy, he's a 20 goal a season striker. And I will always argue that with faith. But Jota can't stay healthy. So how much good does that help? So we'll see if there is some makeover. And then you already mentioned with the Elliott. Another thing too is Alexis and Indo. They have a really good understanding with each other. Just both are really good at receiving the ball as well, like turning in possession. But Indo has the physical component that Alexis lacks sometimes. And I think Liverpool's best games have been when Indo's played at the 6 and Alexis kind of been given a different kind of role. Uh, but both are reliable with turning and distributing, but also really good at winning. Indo's really good at winning the ball back. But Bajcetic came in and he looks too young for this. Now Bajcetic came in this game and in the second half and won a lot of tackles. But people were wondering, people thought that was a good thing. But when you're winning 4-0, that should be when the game's comfortable. You have to win a lot of tackles because the game is hectic as hell. The game was hectic as hell because they couldn't keep control of the ball. That wasn't necessarily Bajcetic's fault, but I thought you just lost what Indo and Alexis were offering. So the future is bright for this kid, this 19-year-old kid. He hasn't been able to play all year. Apparently, he's been dealing with growing pains. Uh, Indo is 31. The games that I think Liverpool have struggled a little bit has been when Indo he can't play every single game, and I don't think Alexis is the best at being a 6 either. That is something that they need to think about this year as well. So not only do they have to think about something to do with uh, Salah's contract is gonna get awkward. We'll see what they do with him. I would like to see them keep him, especially if they can find a way to play him kind of closer to goal a little bit more than what we've seen. Uh, but that's gonna unfortunately be talked about. So there's gonna be some turnover. But I think they need to look at this. They cheaped it out last year. Endo has worked, but Endo is also 31 years old. If they had done that Casado deal, I think Liverpool would have won the title. Um, so they were close. It's just and Alexis and Casado that partnership we saw when it worked for Brighton, it would have worked for Liverpool. And Casado started to really fly for Chelsea the last few games. But is there someone out there where they can do that? They can go out and find someone to be a 6 that can drop in to almost be like a third center back at times. So you can spread out Van Dijk, you can spread out Kwanzaa or Kanate. That's basically your back line, your high line, and that way you can still play with 2 8s. But you need someone that's physical to be in in that kind of shape. Alexis can't really do that. You also need someone that can be someone reliable on the ball when you're passing from the back. Slot apparently likes doing a lot of build up with the keeper. Allison sometimes struggles a little bit with that, especially when he doesn't have people that can be reliable on that end. We've seen that with Fabinho and Henderson the last few years. So Indo is quite good at doing that, and as is Alexis McAllister. And Bajcetic has shown he can turn with the ball. That's positive. But if you're going to bring someone in, you need to find someone that's both physical beast, someone that can win headers if needed, someone that has the pace to make recovery runs as well, but also someone that's good on with the ball at the feet. That's not easy to find. So we'll see if Liverpool do put some priority in that position as well. I think they probably will need to. But I don't know. Maybe they'll roll with Endo again. Indo's a good player. It's just I don't think he can play every single game week. Not when you're going to be Champions League as well next year. As they're going to have to think of that. And that's kind of it. I mean, the shape collapsed after Indo went off as well. I think that's worth kind of saying that. Gravenberch came in; he was lax in his marking. Gomez is a different running fullback than Robinson. I thought Robinson at times has been a little risky, but in this case, it worked. It worked. Him having that high energy was why Spurs weren't able to play out in that first half. And once Gomez was being more kind of worried about Brennan Johnson. But I guess that's true too. Robinson had Kulishevsky. He didn't have Brennan Johnson. Things were a little bit different, and Gomez did allow Brennan Johnson to get behind him. So that was kind of unfortunate. Tsimikas has not been given some game time over the last few games. You don't really know what they're going to do with him. Gomez, I think, is on the last year of his contract. Do you extend to him? So you might have to think about maybe a left back idea. Maybe do a different kind of a left back with Robinson. That could be something in the cards as well. And I mentioned the thing with Nunez, so don't necessarily need to go into that. Uh, and the to kind of beat a dead horse, the only thing I was really annoyed about is we didn't see Gakpo and Nunez together enough this season, and I don't know why that necessarily wasn't the case because both are just really good at bullying people in the air. So that's kind of just where we are. And so we'll see what they do as far as these final two games. They still have Aston Villa. They finally have top four. Fully official. They probably have third official. We'll have to see about that. But still have Aston Villa to play, and then they have Wolves at home. And the only thing to talk about there is Klopp can't get a yellow card in the Aston Villa game because then he will have to miss his final game at Anfield. So Klopp needs to be on his best behavior. But Aston Villa could be tricky. We'll have to see. Aston Villa are probably going to be tired though. They're going to have to go all out to try to win that conference game, and then they have a short week rest. I think they had that game is next Monday. And then already mentioned a little bit with Spurs. Unlucky with Udogie missing and Mr. Roy doesn't work. I think you have to play. I think the second half adjustment worked. You have to play Oliver Skip. Another thing they did though is they brought in Lo Celso. Lo Celso for it was either Sarr or Basuma. And Lo Celso came on. He helped with their buildup in the second half. He was dropping and being available for the ball in a way that Sarr or Basuma weren't really doing. And then the Spurs were much better at turning and finding teammates. And Lo Celso, to me, it's been weird. He hasn't played much this season. The one game he did play, he scored in, was Man City. Funny enough, and Man City is coming up. So we'll see if they do something with that. Richarlison gave them a much different look than what we had seen. Just they're far more direct. They're far more dangerous in the box. Son with the left wing looked really good again. Weird enough, he looks good when he plays in his preferred position. He had Trent and Kwanzaa on skates, beating them both, and scored a good goal. And then Pedro Porro was much more involved, and I think that kind of showed up as well. And they did better defending corner kicks, you can say. So. And the only kind of negative was sitting Madison didn't work. And I don't really know if Madison and Kulishevsky work together is a thing. That was another thing, too. I think it was Kulishevsky that started with Chelsea. And so they tried Kulishevsky in the 10 role, too. That didn't work with Chelsea either. So the problem with Spurs is when Madison picked up his injury and then returned, he wasn't the same player. The Spurs weren't the same. Madison was so good in the first half of the season before that injury. And even with they got some players back. They finally got their back line back. Other than missing Udogie, but they're a Mickey Van de Ven hamstring away from honestly this team being like 10th every single season. They need to they play way too almost way too expansive, way too risky. So Pochettino has had a fantastic first half of the season or first season. Even if they don't get a Champions League, even if they just missed out just a little bit, I think it'll just be for that. They didn't necessarily have the depth needed. But and we'll see if he has something left for Man City. That second half for Liverpool should give that team a lift. So we'll have to see because they came into this game with not the best of form. It is worth kind of saying that, but. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what Spurs do in the summertime. There's been links which also might be out to Saudi. So if you're losing your own striker, you're probably going to have to get a striker. Who is on the who's on the list that has been linked to London clubs. It's possible they might be looking at Tony. I don't necessarily know if that. I mean, it's weird to say because I am high on Tony, but I think Richarlison's a pretty good striker as well. Uh, his just issue is not necessarily being able to be fit this year, and I wouldn't have said that last year. Richarlison has really done well to get over that hump. He moved a season ago, 2 seasons ago. He wasn't really getting minutes with Kane being there. It took a while for him to kind of find his footing here. He mentioned with mental struggles, but he showed up for them. He's had a good second half of the season, in my opinion, for them. And the only issue is just when he wasn't available, they didn't have anyone else. They have that Valise player that I mentioned to think about. So we'll see what Spurs do in the offseason, because I feel like they're not far away, to be honest, but they are going to need to make some moves. So we'll see about that. And then with Brighton and Aston Villa, see how we're doing for time. Brighton do go on to beat Aston Villa, and actually it's not great. Brighton do on to beat Aston Villa 1-0 just with a PK. Two goals ruled out in this game for VAR. Very shaky VAR episodes as well. You don't have to necessarily touch on that. There wasn't really a ton to talk about. Aston Villa just they lost Morgan Rogers. They looked leggy, and without Emi Martinez, but Robert Olsen honestly kept them in the game. Simon Adingra was probably Brighton's best player. He was making some pretty good chances for Brighton, and just weren't able to necessarily put them away. And basically Adingra is able to get behind. I think it's Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa brings him down, and then João Pedro has the PK. It's saved, and then but Pedro is able to put that away. That's probably something I would actually look at as well. I would like it to be a rule where, like, if you miss a PK, you shouldn't be the first player to be able that the person that takes it should be the first one to touch it. Now, I know that would probably be ruffling some feathers too, but I think there needs to be a little penalty for missing a PK. But that is just all because you're not allowing keepers to even like leave just even a little bit. You're penalizing even just if a keeper just leaves off his line. So it's already punishment enough, in my opinion. So it wasn't the best PK either. So I think neither team really did deserve to win. But big for De Zerbi. De Zerbi had been having some slips, and it's just kind of where they are with all those injuries. And the one positive is you got João Pedro back, and you got Enciso. Enciso came on and actually looked quite good for them in the second half, as did Pascal Gross was kind of switched sides in the second half, and he had a couple of really nice moments as well. So there's not a ton to really talk about with here. Nice bounce back for De Zerbi, as I mentioned. Adingra probably the best player for the game. So going forward, the fun thing about Brighton is if you are able to keep De Zerbi, because maybe the Bayern links have kind of died down. It could be kind of cool because maybe De Zerbi sees this as a challenge again. It seems like he likes being a kind of coach that takes on challenges. You're able to go another season with him. They still have a lot of money that they were able to pocket from that Caicedo deal. They tried to do this Carlos Baliba, this Valentin Balco, kind of they've tried Facundo Bernete. They've tried those kind of players. Now it's time to get someone that actually is ready made. They probably do have the funds for it. So let's see if they need to fix that back line as well. Lewis Dunk, Adam Webster, Igo Julio has not quite worked out. They need to go out and get something else. Or Ben Hecke would be another. Ben Hecke, I guess, has had an okay season, but you can't play a high line the way that he's wanted to play. They've been without Matoma. They've been without Sully Marsh. They need to probably get a striker. I don't think Danny Welbeck really works out the best for them. So there's a lot of kind of things for Brighton to work on, but it doesn't seem like it's that much. And Brighton are still Brighton out of possession. So I would actually like De Zerbi to stay. I think it would be good for the Premier League. I think it would be not just good for Brighton, good for the Premier League, and maybe good for De Zerbi. To be honest, try to find a way to fix this. And then with because it doesn't feel like they are that far away, but they are. They are off it. And then with Aston Villa, chance to secure top four went a little bit wasted. But and their legs look tired, so that's just kind of where we are with that. A couple games now in a row where Ollie Watkins hasn't really been able to get the ball, so that's kind of a problem. They're missing Tielemans. Tielemans kind of has that eye for a through pass, so that's kind of the one maybe area where they're lacking a little bit. They've been missing Barbecue Kamara for the longest time, so that kind of changes how their setup is, kind of out of possession as well. And then I'll move on to Newcastle and Burnley. Newcastle would go on to win 4-1 with Callum Wilson with a nice little cleanup goal, and then Longstaff, and then Bruno Guimaraes. So it's 3-0 at halftime, and then Alexander Isak makes it 4-0, and then O'Shea with a late header. So I'm going to try to go over this kind of quickly. I mean, Burnley actually started off quite strong. Bruno Larson got in behind, collected a long ball, needed Dubravka kind of make an early 1v1 save. And then there was a decent PK shot that wasn't given. I think probably it could have been. Bruno is late to kind of close down and catches Assignon but by his side. I mean, maybe they saw it was just kind of incidental contact, but it is close. If nothing else, it's close. So slow start, but it does all it takes is one attack to kind of change things up, and they get it here. So after Callum Wilson trying to buy some fouls and not really being given them, he's able to make a goal out of it. So and Newcastle, it's a really nice team goal. So it starts with the keeper, plays it to Emil Kraft, standing out wide. Then he plays the ball to Jacob Murphy, running back towards goal to the right touchline. Murphy then running towards the ball on the right touchline. This is important. Murphy's run here actually sets up the goal. So by doing that, he makes himself available, but he's running towards the ball. He doesn't really have a lot to do. He can go backwards, but that's really not going to go you anywhere. Murphy's able to one-time it to Livramento. And Livramento then is able to turn on the ball, and then from there, Newcastle are in. So it was almost like a wall pass a little bit. And frankly, if Murphy doesn't make this run, when Emil Kraft gets the ball, he's got no one to. Maybe he can go long, but Newcastle aren't really able to do anything with it. So Murphy making that run back set this up. But then Livramento gets it, does a nice job to carry the ball upfield. Cullen's on his shoulder, and Livramento is able to push him off it. And then he finds Longstaff, and then Longstaff has Jacob Murphy sprinting all the way up down the wing. So he's joined in the attack. So great energy by Murphy here. And Murphy gets a pass after the overlap run, and then after the 60-yard sprint, essentially. And it finds Ishak. Ishak's shot is first saved, but Wilson is there to clean it up. And it's a really good goal here because Isak and Wilson are quite a good duo together. But the reason why they're good together is they don't make the same run. So Isak makes a run near post. Wilson stays kind of far back, a little bit more centrally, and he's able to get the tap in. But a lot of players to really talk about here. The Livramento run is important, but I do want to highlight what Murphy did because without him being an outlet, I do think they struggle a little bit, at least as far as building off of the back end. Murphy's gotten a couple chances now for Howe, and he's been rewarded for it. And then Livramento is another that's getting a couple a run out here because Newcastle without Trippier. And he impacted the game a little bit like Trippier would have. And then they get the second goal, so the other fullback plays a star role in this one. So Burnley look to maybe have Newcastle in some trouble. And if this ball gets past Lewis Hall, they are in trouble because Dan Burn would have been forced into a bad 2v1. But Lewis Hall gambles, does win the ball back. And then not only that, he's able to start a counter himself. Because Burnley's right back, Assignon, is making a run, he's out of position now after the turnover. That's kind of the gamble you have to make here. Hall, though, wasn't done. He tried a long switch ball to pick out Ishak crossing the field. Wilson then brings it down but he tries to run with it and takes a bit of a heavy touch. And I think he gets away a little bit with a shove here. Wilson, but the ref allows it. And then, so Newcastle able to keep the ball after it looked like O'Shea was going to win the ball after Wilson had the heavy touch on the byline. But Newcastle able to win it, and then Murphy is able to run onto it, does a cutback ball into the box, and picks out Longstaff, and Longstaff has a nice little hit. And it just seemed he enjoyed a little bit of a different role in this team, playing a little more centrally and kind of in a pivot. But again, this could have easily gone the other way, as you see the tiny margins here kind of factored in, and then Newcastle get the third with Bruno, and so just bad turn to worse or a nightmare. Newcastle had the press on here. Darren Burn's playing really high, marking Lyle Foster. Foster does well to keep it, actually. And Burnley have Odegaard streaking in behind Lewis Hall. When Assignon gets the ball here, if he just sends us upfield, I think Burnley are likely in. But Assignon doesn't. He takes a heavy touch instead, and Dan Burn is able to run at him and stick a leg out and pokes the ball back. So Newcastle able to break on when they probably would have been the team to actually be hit on. And then Gordon gets it, does a really nice job to drag defenders, freeze onto him. Then he lays it off to Bruno. Bruno has a nice little Nice little finish. Newcastle woke up after the poor start, but Burnley had a number of looks in that first half too. It didn't feel like a 3-0 kind of game, but it doesn't really matter because they didn't start the second half well. Gordon has a nice little pace to get to the byline, beating Josh Brownhill. Josh Brownhill brings him down. PK, but Ishak doesn't convert it, but he scores right after that. So it's a poor touch and pass by Sanderberger allows Newcastle to break up the field. Ishak finds Wilson, and then Murphy. Murphy then helps to uh, Ishak finds Wilson, and then when it looks like Wilson's maybe going to lose the ball, Murphy's able to help and continue his run and runs onto the loose ball, and then he has a cross squaring it to the back post where Ishak is also continuing his run. He takes a touch and is able to finish. Ishak is really good at sprinting to be in the penalty area. Even when he's helping with the build up, he's like Holland in that where he goes. Uh, and Ishak is another player. I mentioned how there's only I can't think of anyone like Nunez that offers that kind of physical kind of a profile that creates just big chances just by his build. Ishak would be one of them. Isak, uh, but Isak's also been kind of he's had injury issues throughout his career when Nunez necessarily haven't. So that's kind of the only that's kind of something to maybe think about. But then to touch on this goal happens again because of Murphy. Uh, Wilson is probably going to lose the ball here. It looks like it's Assignon or someone has Murphy kind of dead to rights. Looks like he's going to win the ball off, and then Murphy just runs and joins and is able to kick the ball in front. Goes past Assignon, and then he has the cross. Murphy's delivery with his crosses created 2 goals. And then the last few minutes, Matt Ritchie came on, had a poor touch, gave away a corner kick, and Burnley scored on the corner kick. So chances were slim at best for Burnley's formed. Did give them a shot, but it was zero room for error almost, and this definitely didn't help. Newcastle with 23 shots, 11 on target, uh, 53% possession, 3.5 xG. That kind of says it all. And one thing I want to touch on is what what a turnaround it has been for Eddie Howe. So I mean, the signs of a good manager is he maybe made some mistakes a little bit with his rotation in the first half. There was that time in November where he wasn't able to change his 11. He had injury issues, and then he wasn't able to change his 11 because he was in Champions League. Going against PSG, he had to win those games in the Champions League to stay alive. And then he had that December run where the Christmas run where he just did not have a fit squad at all, and basically ran his players to the ground. So that's kind of the one area where he screwed up slightly. But the sign of a good manager is someone that's able to adjust. And I didn't know he could do this, to be honest. I was worried he was going to just play 4-3 the whole year. I thought he was just going to give Bruno his run role. He was going to play Dan Burn at fullback all year. You're going to try to press, and then you're going to have a slow back line, which doesn't really work. And instead, he did change. Now, it helped also having Callum Wilson this game. He haven't had him for most of the season. But we saw a 4-4-2, almost a flat 4-4-2. And we saw really so Anthony Gordon and Murphy were able to offer you width, but we also saw we got Livramento and Lewis Hall able to kind of give you a little bit of something at fullback that's different. You're able to play Dan Burn at center back, where I think he's a little bit better for you. It's still probably an area you need to improve on, to be honest. Emil Kraft in this game. Emil Kraft for the other center back. So it's not really the star kind of lineup you would have expected, at least at the back line. No Trippier as well. Without Nick Pope for almost most of the season, Newcastle have a chance to finish sixth, and Europe's not out of the question. We'll see. We'll see how they do towards the end. They play Manchester United heads up coming up, which could factor in as well. I think they have the upper hand over Chelsea. So if Newcastle can win out, I think they can finish sixth, which would be quite an unremarkable story when you think about it. Given how things just really did look to be dead and disaster for them. But Eddie Howe was able to, it's a sign of a good manager. He was able to switch it up a little bit to play to his strengths, and he's changed his system to kind of suit the team that he has, and it has worked. Now, is it not? It hasn't been the most pretty on the eye. And they do sometimes struggle when it comes to just keeping the ball and the build up can be a little lax. Teams that are around them usually have higher passing numbers. That has kind of been a thing. That's not just because of them going long. I think that is kind of a quality issue. But you can probably address that a little bit in the transfer window. They also got screwed by bringing in Sandro Tonali. It is worth saying that, and they possibly do have some financial fair play issues because of what happened with Tonali. So we'll see if they have to sell some people. Bruno Guimaraes has been linked to everywhere. I think Ishak has been called out as someone that teams are going to look at. Now teams are going to have to pay a pretty penny for both those players, but uh, I think it's been exciting because I wanted to see this, to be honest. I think it's been a great story that Eddie Howe's been able to come into Newcastle, and he hasn't just been a one season wonder. It hasn't been necessarily the dream season because he got them in the Champions League after saving them from relegation, and then this was maybe the time for everything to really collapse, and he's really got them to turn around and find some form. Another thing too is we've seen some players really show up for them. Anthony Gordon and Jacob Murphy, terrific pace on both wings, really good at decision making in the box. Quite good delivery and crosses that set up a couple goals. Murphy offers you a little bit more than Almiron, in my opinion, because he can go down the line, he can go down the wing and use his right foot, where Almiron won't. Anthony Gordon, I think, can play anywhere in that front three. He's been quite a nice little gem as well. And then we've started to see Livermento, and we finally saw some Lewis Hall. And Lewis Hall has taken a while to get going. Lewis Hall had a good game, so the future actually isn't as bad as it might have looked. And the it's good for Hal because I was worried he's probably going to be one of the managers on maybe the short list. But I, I think it's good. I think it's good for English football as well, 'cause English manager. Uh, that he continues to have some success. He continues to lead a big club. Newcastle is a big club, and I think it's interesting how Newcastle's have the Saudi owners, but they haven't done necessarily what Man City have done. Now, financial fair play possibly restricts that because of how much revenue they can bring in, which is I don't really understand. Uh, but they've come in and they have spent a lot, but they haven't necessarily done it with stars. They've done it with kind of role players that fit a pretty good role, and role players that fit kind of the style he likes to play. So I like the idea that he's shown that he can switch it up a little bit, which is important for a good coach. Because when I get to the other team, that hasn't been the case. And then with Burnley is rough because you feel like if the PK decision gone your way, maybe a couple other decisions go your way. Where the Aston Young one, where instead of taking a touch, if he just boots it over to Odegaard and making a run, maybe you're the one that's able to get the counter. Maybe you actually get to go 1-1 or make it 2-1. No, it would have been 1-1. So just the almost, and that's kind of been Burnley this year. Just the almost. Another fortunate thing was Aston Young's been really good for them the last few weeks going forwards, but here the aggression kind of worked against them, and defensively he wasn't strong enough with Jacob Murphy, and that kind of showed up as well. So Burnley couldn't capitalize, and Sheffield could versus Nottingham Forest could versus Sheffield United. But they got started kind of awkward. First the first goal was Brennan Diaz, earning a PK, and then Hudson Odoi made it 1-1, and then Ryan Yates in the second half, so it was 1-1 going into halftime, and then Hudson Odoi again, and terrific story for him, to be honest, because he's come to Forest. No one really knew what to expect, and he's almost revived his career. Now he was always talked about at Chelsea, and then he had his Achilles, and then he wasn't really able to recover from that. Um, this injury really does take a lot out of players. So we've seen Eze having to change a little bit of his game, but man, it really is a nice story to see because Hudson Odoi went to it might have been Bayern Leverkusen. He went to somewhere in Europe, might have been Eintracht Frankfurt, and he only had, like, 1 goal for the whole campaign when he was on loan. It did not work out, and he brought back into England. No one knew what to expect when he came to Forest, and he's shown the ability to be really good. It might be a one-trick pony, might just, you get the ball onto his stronger left foot right foot on the left side. You know he's gonna cut in, but he's good at doing it. And you don't need when you're at a level when you just need to stay up, keep a team up. This is enough. Because Sheffield didn't necessarily have this. Sheffield had a couple chances to score, and they weren't. I mean, these were such good finishes by him, and it really is a good story. So, uh, big and really important for Nottingham Forest. It was almost a mini cup final. This was the game in hand because you had Chelsea after this. You had to win this game, and they did. It didn't. It wasn't great though to start. It is worth kind of saying that. So that's kind of where we are. Nottingham Forest with they were outshot. 17 by Sheffield to 15. Sheffield had looks on goal, three big chances apiece. Sheffield weren't able to make it count. Uh, and that's kind of just where we're at. Let's see. Already mentioned how we are with the way the relegation race is looking. So we'll see what Nottingham Forest do versus Chelsea. If they win that game, I think that actually would seal it. But if Chelsea are able to win it, that maybe does take it to the final day. So depending on what Burnley and Luton do, they basically both have to win out as well. So still in their hands, but only just. I think actually the next game that Burnley or Luton play, might be Burnley, is Sheffield United. So that will help out if that is the case. But we'll have to see. Um, and then with Sheffield, it's been the worst defense all year, and they weren't able to do anything defensively versus Hudson Odoi. So 100 goals conceded. You see why. Unfortunate for them. And towards the very end of the game, I think An Mahanovic, one of their defenders, picked up a second yellow. So they would be without him for the final few games. And again, their defense was horrible to start the year, or I mean, horrible to start the season. You got in January, you knew you had to do something in January. They brought in Bremerton Diaz, that worked out offensively, but that didn't really help you at the back end. So Mason Holgate they brought in as to try to fix that, and it didn't. And then Luton and Everton, already mentioned it a bit because Luton had the chance to put a little pressure on Nottingham Forest, and they only drew. Everton 1-1. It probably could have gone the other way. Luton were quite good in the second half, but it was just a little too late. Adebayo though had a really nice goal to equalize, and if Luton do go down, I think Adebayo is going to be someone that gets some looks. Ross Barkley as well. I think Ross Barkley has done enough to have some people to look at him. Maybe Everton actually could look at him, but maybe even a club that's even higher. He's up there in age, but Ross Barkley has owned the show, and done it with first EPL competition, not just doing it at Luton and just kind of being a good player on a bad team. Ross Barkley's been quite good. But Adebayo as well. I think if Adebayo hadn't gone down in February, I think Luton actually would have stayed up, because he's another one of those kind of physical kind of beasts that gives defenders fits, and is quite calm with his finishing and quite good touch. To be honest, and he feels kind of raw still. So he can maybe be refined a little bit more, but uh, yeah, it's not enough, unfortunately for them, and it does put them a little bit to the wayside. 50-50 in the possession. Luton with 18 shots, but 13 came in the second half, so that kind of said it. It was a pretty even game. Just kind of ugly. No team really had control of it. I think with Everton, it's credit to Sean Dyche. One thing I want to say is, you know, Calvert-Lewin, kind of a big, what if career story. Calvert-Lewin would have been one of those players, as I mentioned, that has that physical kind of profile, and just his body is kind of giving out on him, unfortunately. Uh, Another thing to say was, Beto was supposed to be brought in. He hasn't really been able to pan out. So the fact that Sean Dyche has been able to do this has been impressive, because he his team probably should have been one to go down. And it didn't, because Jared Brathwaite and Tarkowski was quite a good pairing. In the end, Pickford is always going to be good, but at the fullbacks, it's been rough. Ashley Young has been a soldier for them, but I don't really think he's good enough to actually play minutes. They were missing Michelenko. Ashley Young got bullied for the Adebayo goal, and then Seamus Coleman likewise probably needs to go. They have. I don't know if Godfrey is really the best option in general, but it's the best option that they have. And when Godfrey's come in, he's at least given them some fits or some help. And then that's just kind of it. So then there's not really a whole lot to play for now for Everton, and I guess for their fans, that has to be a relief, because it's gone down to the last day the last 2 years. And so with that said, I do wonder what they do now. The last game of the season will be Arsenal. Arsenal will be going all out. It's kind of a dead rubber game the next game is Sheffield. Everton have Sheffield, not Luton or Burnley. So the next game for them is a dead rubber game almost, versus Sheffield. So maybe try Dan Juma, maybe try Chiomiti, or Jacob Dobbins. See what they got for next season. Because this, I mentioned how there's going to be a lot of big summers for these teams. Everton's going to have a big summer as well. I don't know if they'd be able to do this again. They've gotten away with it 3 years, but one thing you can say about it is, this year has proved staying up is really all about having a sound structure in place. a structure allows you to get away with missing key players. And when teams are really reliant on stars, you can go down if you have your stars kind of go not able to play for the whole season. And just this season has been a war of attrition, finding a way to play a consistent style, regardless of who you have available, and having players buy into that. That's kind of what just Dice does. That is Dice ball. So, but what's kind of funny is that doesn't seem to be the case for the next club that I'm going to talk to, and Manchester United and Crystal Palace. You know where this is going. They do lose 4-0. It could have been worse. Palace had shoot like 13 shots on goal, something like that, 12. Uh, they were clinical. What's funny enough is they only had 5 shots in the first half though. So it wasn't. They just had a lot of looks on goal. But just Man United came into this with what they lined up. This kind of this made sense. So it's Casemiro, who's not a center back. I need to make that point first. And then it was Johnny Evans. So no Harry Maguire, none of their first three choices. No Lindelof, no Varane, no Harry Maguire. Even though I think they need to get rid of him anyways. No even that Kambala guy who played well versus Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. So they were just bare bones, absolute bare bones, and it showed. So you're playing one that's not a center back. Two, Johnny Evans' legs don't work, and then in front of him you had Kobe Mano and Christian Eriksen. Christian Eriksen looks like his legs have given away, and he was getting outbeat in every single duel with Will Hughes and Adam Wharton. And then you just had Kobe Mano playing by himself, and it was just really easy for Palace to get behind him. And then you had players that can finish. You had Elise, you had Mateta. Mateta was able to just go in 1v1 and just looked like Johnny Evans, like a cone. He kind of was. But then Mateta had to actually finish, and he had a really good finish by beating Onana. Onana's beaten near post though. A couple of his dives weren't necessarily great. And then Mitchell for the third, that just came from kind of a corner kick that was recycled. Adam Wharton had a really nice ball over the top, really nice delivery on it. Uh, and then Anderson was able to get behind. I think it might be Dallo. He kind of bullies Dallo a little bit, and Anderson as well to just kind of lay it off, lay something square across the box that Mitchell's able to put in, and then Elise gets the fourth, and this is probably the one where everyone looked at Casemiro because Casemiro probably should do better with this. It looks like he's got the ball and he can just kick it out of bounds, but Munoz basically is stronger in the challenge. Casemiro loses the ball, and then Munoz as well to pick out Elise, and then no one runs on Manchester United to block the shot, and Elise's shot just kind of stuns Onana. Onana probably could have done better with this one as well. So that's just kind of where we are. It honestly could have been worse. Edouard came on for Mateta. Edouard, basically was able to beat Casemiro as well in a duel, and then was had a shot. Onana didn't even move, and it hit the crossbar. So it honestly could have been worse. I mean, it was as bad as you probably would have if you're a Man United fan. It really was as bad as it could have looked because there was no energy, there was no pace. Hoyland could not get any touches, any looks. The only times that they somewhat looked threatening was on set pieces, really. They were able to kind of cause Dean Henderson to make a mess up that probably could have been a goal. I'd probably argue it should have been a goal, but as we saw was Arsenal, I guess they call that now. Um, and then I think Casemiro scored on a corner on a free kick, but he was offsides. So that's troubling. Anthony did not offer you anything. Garnacho did not offer you anything. No, none were helping. To help run back. Uh, Crystal Palace were playing with wing backs, and both Mitchell and Munoz were doing really well to kind of overload Man United on that side, and you're just allowing Elise and Eze to get the ball to carry it, and it's just really easy to run past the midfield that doesn't have legs. It just is, and they're just able to get into those spots in the middle third of the field, and then you've got a backline that's always in retreat because one of Mateta, and two, just you got a backline that just will always fear someone like Elise and Eze running at them, and so this could have happened a long time ago, and it should have happened. I would argue every single game going back to February. So that's just kind of where we are. Everyone's going to go with Ten Hag. There's reasons to, but also that team to line up with was not good. That team would have fought to stay up. So they had to do that the whole season. So you have to look at who they brought in at the board. Another thing too is we're seeing Jadon Sancho take Dortmund to the Champions League final. You shipped out Jadon Sancho. We saw Sabitzer. take Jordan into the Champions League final. You had Sabitzer last year. So there have been massive mistakes everywhere. It's not just Ten Hag. But that said, Ten Hag has not once really adjusted how he plays. And this was a game where you didn't have Bruno Fernandes. And I wanted to kind of test this theory too. Does Bruno Fernandes, is he the one that makes you vulnerable because he's always kind of out of position and whatnot? I think it's the role, not necessarily Bruno himself. And we saw it here. Mason Mount had a chance to kind of, play and stake his claim to actually have that spot to himself, and he couldn't do it. Mason Mount was just nowhere to be seen. And without Bruno Fernandes, this team looked like Sheffield United, not Manchester United. So it's not just about them, though. Palace were good themselves. Elise and Eze are special. Eze's stats was 9 to 14 dribbles and 11 ground duels won. Adam Wharton and Will Hughes. I keep talking about Adam Wharton. Will Hughes was fantastic as well. 90% pass accuracy. I didn't know he would be that. And just very, very strong in his duels and tackles, and was smart with the ball. And Adam Wharton was beating Kobe Mano to the ball, out physicaling him. Wharton's only 20 years old, same age as Mano as well. Wharton looks quite impressive the more you see him, and he's got a really good eye for a pass, just a very good through ball. I think actually they get one of the they get the fourth goal. I think it's because Wharton has the through ball to play in Munoz when Casemiro kind of messes up. So Oliver Glasnow has come in and installed a new system, gotten players to buy in, and it suits his players more, and it's exciting. And the problem is Ten Hag can't do that. Ten Hag has not been able to do what Oliver Glasnow has been able to do in 11 games. So that's kind of a problem. And then one last thing to say about Palace is it's been unfortunate we haven't gotten to see Eze and Olise enough. This is the EPL's version of Leroy Sané and Musiala on the same team. I don't think I'm being exaggerating there. These two are special. And I think it'll be unfortunate if a club comes in and actually takes one or two away. Because they're both young enough where one more season with them would be really cool to see. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens or not. Probably not. Elise has been linked everywhere, so probably not. But Eze is quite special too. I could see both honestly playing on Man City. I think they're that good. But we'll have to see. If nothing else, Palace have something to be optimistic about. So that's kind of cool. And then with Man United. Other than like that awkward situation, this was bad. And Casemiro got a lot of stick by the UK pundits, and he was poor. He's not a center back though. I think we need to remember that he's not playing in his position. He's been poor this season. Yes, his legs look out of it. They've been asking him to play by midfield by himself. You brought in a player that was 30 years old, that had done all this stuff for Real Madrid. It was interesting that they sold him immediately after getting Tchouaméni. Why did they go get Tchouaméni when they still had a 30-year-old Casemiro? They kind of knew his legs were kind of gone, and you were able to get a year out of him. And he was good for them last season. They got top four really because Casemiro. Casemiro was fantastic for them last season. But it's just been weird. You know that you don't really have someone that can, either his legs are gone or he's been overplayed. He's had to be overrun. He's been playing midfield by himself. You've been asking him to play in the beginning. It was just Mason Mount and Bruno together, and that just was a disaster. It was really easy to run around him. When you play McTominay and Bruno together, that doesn't really help out either. And all you've done really this season is Ten Hag has replaced Casemiro for Kobe Mano, who's 19, and you've been sending him to the Wolves. And here, there are a couple players that need to retire. I don't necessarily know if it's Casemiro. Casemiro, not great. I don't think he should necessarily be a starter. I don't think JB Carrick ran after him saying he needs to retire. Their team, their players need to retire here. It's not necessarily Casemiro. Harry Maguire needs to retire. Johnny Evans needs to retire. Christian Eriksen, I don't want to necessarily go at him that much because you feel a little bit for him for being able to battle back from his heart condition. But his legs look on. His legs look like he's left him too. And he didn't do anything to say that he deserves to play more. You have Amrabat. If nothing else gives you legs, maybe you don't like his touches, but he at least gives you something. You need to play Amrabat and Kobe Mano for the next game. But again, this could have happened a long time ago. They've allowed 20-plus shots a game every single game for the last, going back to January. No Rashford, so you can't blame him. And again, just Bruno misses one game and they look like that. That is insane. And it's okay. All they have now is Arsenal coming up. So, well, just them. Arsenal are going to play that game like it's a cup final. I mean, I guess Brentford could have done this. They basically did. Liverpool did do it. Burnley did it last week against them, and Coventry City actually did. So they finally went against a team that could put away the chances, and that's kind of what had happened. And injury issues again, one thing. And yes, they've had injury issues, 100%, and 100% it's disrupted them. Having Luke Shaw for like 5 games. Luke Shaw is probably another one that they need to think a little bit about because if you can't have him, you don't really have an option at left back. That's hurt how Rashford played, even when he was playing. Uh, that team is a disaster, and whether or not you get rid of Ten Hag or not, there's going to be a makeover here. It's not You're not going to be able to bring in someone that immediately gets them flying again. There needs to be a clean out of like 10, 11 players minimum, and but it seems they brought in someone that can does that. They're linked to Dan Ashworth, who is at Newcastle, who built up some of their teams. Dan Ashworth was at Brighton before that. Maybe the idea can be that, but this is not great, and it's not just it's the players that they brought in have been all 30 plus. They decided to go to Real Madrid to kind of get all of Varane. You did the same mistake with him with Casemiro, so it was always before that you did it with Cavani. You tried to get the last legs out of him. Uh, I guess they were kind of bitten a little bit by what happened with Mason Greenwood, but I don't think it's great. Also, that he's still technically on their roster sheet. 'Cause there's weird talks about him possibly being able to return because he's still a lone player. So you were kind of bitten a little bit by him, but because you thought he was going to be maybe the next star coming, and it didn't really work out. But that's not enough. I mean, you still have Martial, I think, on the team as well. There needs to be a clear out of a lot of players, and I don't really know what the role is for Bruno going forward. You need to find someone to play with Kobe Mano. Amrabat, I think, was just a loan deal, and you haven't really liked him. You had Regulon, and you didn't want to play with Regulon for some reason. Regulon's come to Brentford and been really good. So it's not just and you shipped out Jaden Sancho. It's the decisions have been weird. Like the makeup of the squad. Uh, you brought in Johnny Evans as just someone to bring in the summertime to just kind of add a body, and that's really what you did. You added a body. You didn't add a player. So Ten Hag is one thing. Now, if Ten Hag had a role in some of that, then that's a different story as well. But get rid of him or not, Man United have a mess on their hands. And that's kind of just Alenga. They got rid of Alenga as well. Another player that they had last year, and I think if you had Fred this year with Kobe Mano, this is different. Fred offers you that energy. You don't get outrun in midfield if you had Fred. You decided to ship him away. Out of all that you could have shipped, McTominay, you could have shipped out everyone that you did, and you shipped out Fred. I don't understand that. So this the decisions have been bad. It's from Ten Hag to the boardroom to everyone really, and it's going to culminate really in I don't know how Ten Hag's going to survive if they get thumped 8-0 in the FA Cup final, and maybe they get some bodies back. Maybe they get Rashford back. Maybe they get Varane back. Maybe I can't say Harry Maguire. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how they're going to survive the FA Cup final. And before that, they've got Arsenal. And I don't know how they survive Arsenal. Before that, or after that, they've got Newcastle. And Newcastle looks like, with their hopes of Europe are on the line as well. I think Newcastle will thump them if they play like this. So I don't know how he survives this. I've been wanting to say it's probably better to wait. Now I don't know. No matter what, there needs to be an entire makeshift. It just from a facelift, a makeover, from top down, and you've brought in the ownership to kind of do that. So we'll see what they do, and that's kind of it. And then we'll get a couple of inconsequential London derbies. Chelsea beat West Ham. Don't have to spend a ton of time on this because just West Ham just decided to not really turn up. One thing I will say is, again, Jackson has started to be the player that maybe Chelsea fans were kind of hoping for. It's only his first season as well, and he has gotten some stick. There was kind of that one kind of awkward moment where he wanted to take a PK, and him and Cole Palmer kind of got into it a little bit. Youth, situation wasn't really pretty, but he's turned around, and he really has turned it around. You know, he had that header versus he had a couple moments versus Aston Villa where you saw this is a player. And you just he had a header and he just kind of missed it. Well, he had the same header versus Spurs the next game, converted it. And Chelsea were very good for Spurs versus Aston Villa in that second half when they were losing 2-0. They're playing quite good even before that, and it just seems since they've lost Enzo, because they've asked Casado to do a different role. They've played Madueke and Mudryk. Mudryk's been much more involved than he's been the last few games. That's showed up as well. And you're giving Cole Palmer a little bit more of a free role than necessarily forcing him a little bit on the right. You've been able to do this also by you're missing Malo Gusto, and what he's done is he's brought in Chalobah, and you've almost turned to a back three almost. And it has worked. You're moving Cucurella almost to be in midfield next to Caicedo, kind of. But everything is the spacing is much better. Mudryk and Madueke are doing good to at least be wide as far as outlets, and that's just allowing channels for Jackson and Cole Palmer to run into, and it's looked quite good for the last few games. They had a number of shots, but they had a number of shots on goal. That's another thing too. West Ham were just not good. And thank you for showing up for Liverpool last week. But I think this could have been the case last week if Liverpool had been able to finish. I didn't think West Ham were that good last week either. Chelsea just were able to finish, and that's sometimes all it really takes. And Bowen did hit the crossbar a couple of times, so it maybe could have been 5-3, 5-2. The other thing to talk about is Kudus. Kudus was quite good, actually amazing. He was the only one that really showed up. David Moyes took off Alvarez to start the second half. You weren't losing 3-0 because Alvarez or 4-0 because of Alvarez. I think Thomas Suchek could have been taken off. I think everyone could have been taken off. Emerson, all of them could have been taken off except for really Jared Bowen and Mo Kudus. And so Kudus, gave it his go. I think if someone's going to look to take a player, Kudus is going to be. People may look at Bowen as well, but Kudus should be looked at. Also, if someone is trying to look to take off, Bowen, this might be the time to do it. With David Moyes maybe leaving, Lopetegui is coming in. Maybe Bowen's going to try to force a move. So maybe a team like Spurs who struggle with that right area. I don't really like Kulusevski. Now Bowen is older, so that you're taking a little risk there, but that would maybe be something to think about. But anyways, that's kind of where we are with that. And then finally in with the most inconsequential game like ever in Brentford and Fulham. Just nothing happened in this game. I watched it live and I really regretted it, to be honest. Tony getting a chance to immediately start was surprising because again, it doesn't really you're not really getting anything by playing him, and you're sitting Weissa to do it. They were without Matthias Jensen. And that kind of showed up. They're missing his kind of through ball, missing his quality. Brentford were not really able to make any chances. And then Fulham had Anthony Robinson had Brian and Bremo kind of on lock. Really impressive defending. But Fulham weren't able to make a whole lot count either. Munoz wasn't really able to do much. And then they Marco Silva brought on Adama Traore and brought on Raul Jimenez. And probably the one chance of the game really did come to Raul Jimenez. Traore was able to make a run, got across into the box, and Jimenez just kind of missed it, just kind of flopped it. Jimenez hasn't really been played a lot of the season since his little purple patch back in November, and that was a little unfortunate for him. But I mean, I think the thing with Fulham is just credit to Silva, but at the same time, they don't really have much to play for now. You've got City coming in. Does that give the squad a little bit of a boost, or are you joining West Ham as far as joining the beach a little early? And Brentford likewise don't really have anything to play for now either. And the thing I would say is Brentford have a big. I keep saying big summers. Brentford have a big summer as well. There's going to be a lot of change and turnover. Now there's no reason to stick with Ivan Toney. And I think it hurts Tony. I think it hurts you. So we'll see what because it hurts not playing Weza or Lewis Potter or these other players that have a chance to to get some minutes and they haven't. So Kevin Shada would be another. You need to see what he has to offer. So that's kind of where we are. And then that is it. I tried to run it down a little bit. I'll be back next week to talk about what happens I guess next week is the Champions League? No. The penultimate week next week, and then we'll have Championship Sunday, and I'll be here to talk about that as well. Maybe do a Champions League episode, and then that'll probably be it for the year. I don't know if I'll do Copa America and European Championships. Try to do something else. So until then, I will be back next week, and you guys stay squatting and stop recording. Oops.